tap the screen, and everyone share the live with 10 people. Let's get some more people in here as fast as possible because we have a lot of stuff to talk about today.
We sure do. And we also know that there has been a lot of published suppression of political content in general on TikTok. So we really need your help to engage in the live, a variety of things. Be sure you're gifting, be sure you're engaging, join the team. You guys get the drill. All right. I think before we get into our topic of today, because we're going to talk about taking out the trash and what that means under the cover of darkness, I do think we should report on the passing of Pope Francis. For those of you who are just waking up, that's what happened overnight. So I'll just read a couple of bit of reporting. Francis, let's see. Pope Francis, who rose from modest means in Argentina to become the first Jesuit and Latin American pontiff, who clashed bitterly with traditionalists in his push for a more inclusive Roman Catholic Church, and who spoke out tirelessly for migrants, the marginalized, and the health of the planet, passed away early this morning at the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. He was 88. The Pope's death was announced by the Vatican in a statement after he appeared from his wheelchair to bless the faithful in his St. Peter's Square Easter sermon. Throughout his 12-year papacy, Francis was a change agent, having inherited a Vatican in disarray in 2013 after the stunning resignation of his predecessor, Pope Benedict the 16th, a standard-bearer of Roman Catholic conservatism. Francis steadily steered the church in another direction, restocking its leadership with a diverse array of bishops who shared his pastoral welcoming approach as he sought to open up the church. Many rank-and-file Catholics approved, believing the church had become inward-looking and distant from ordinary people. Francis reached out to migrants, the poor, the destitute, the victims of SA by the Catholic clergy members, and to alienated gay Catholics. He traveled to often forgotten and far-flung countries and sought to improve relations with an antagonistic Chinese government, Muslim clerics, and leaders from across the fragmented Christian world. After some early stumbles, he took strong steps to address a clerical sex abuse crisis that had become an existential threat to the church. He adopted new rules to hold top religious leaders, including bishops, accountable if they committed abuse or covered it up, though he did not impose the level of transparency or civil reporting obligations that many advocates had demanded. So, I think it's safe to say that he's probably one of the more progressive popes that we've seen, at least in our lifetime, just because of pushing back against, hardcore, especially coming off of Pope Benedict, who was a by-the-book pontiff. So is what happens now. The process by which a new pope is elected has undergone numerous changes in the nearly 2 millennia. The Catholic Church has existed with the current procedure, a combination of ancient traditions and modern updates, as recent as 2013, reflecting changes instituted by Pope Benedict. Even so, the essential ritual has remained largely unchanged. Pope's death sets into motion a series of formalized rites and observances that occur during what is called interregnum, which begins upon the pontiff's passing and ends with the election of his successor. The period of time during which the papacy is vacant is known as sede vacante, Latin for vacant seat. The Pope's death is first ritually verified by the Cardinal Carnolengo, or Chamberlain, who runs the ordinary affairs of the Vatican city-state during sede vacante. A traditional 9 days of mourning then commences. This includes the Pope's funeral, which per tradition is held within 4 to 6 days of his passing, after his body lies in state for several days in St. Peter's Basilica. This also allows global dignitaries and heads of state to pay their respects and attend the funeral. It's also during interregnum that all cardinals under the age of 80, are there any cardinals under the age of 80? Apparently, who are eligible to participate are summoned to Rome to prepare for the secret conclave inside the Sistine Chapel to choose the next pontiff, a gathering that typically commences between 15 to 20 days after the Pope's death. Cardinals spend the interregnum housed in private rooms in the Doma Sanctae, essentially a residence hotel in the Vatican with dining facilities that usually houses visiting clergy. Per tradition, the cardinals are cut off in the outside world, including televisions, phones, computers, and newspapers. The College of Cardinals will cast as many as 4 ballots in a single day for the next pope, with a 2/3 majority required to elect a pontiff. After each vote, the ballots are burned and smoke is released from the Sistine Chapel's chimney as a signal to the throngs holding vigil in St. Peter's Square. Black smoke, or fumata nera in Italian, indicates inconclusive vote, while white smoke, fumata bianca, will signify that a new pope has been elected. If 3 days pass with no pope elected, the voting can be suspended for a day to allow the cardinals time for reflection before the next round are cast. So obviously a lot of eyes will be on Rome and the Vatican over the next month or so, because there's 1.3 billion Catholics. in the world. It's quite, I mean, we've all seen so many movies about, conclave, whether it be, the Da Vinci Code or a series of those movies, or, the two popes or the young pope, things like that. So it's, as a recovering Catholic, I just remember my grandmother just having a picture of the Pope in their living room. It used to always freak me out.
This was probably the most liberal Pope we'll ever get. I mean, he was blessing the, civil unions of rich gay people in Europe. I mean, that might be the closest we ever get to having some sort of liberal Pope leading the Catholic Church. But I just want to remind everyone, because if everyone probably is wondering why did I said don't have a meeting with JD Vance. This is February 12th, 2025. Over and over in the last months of the Pope's life, he has been in a constant battle back and forth with JD Vance and with the Trump administration in general, particularly, I mean, over many human rights abuses, but particularly over what they're doing with immigration and migration and how they are treating immigrants and disappearing them. This was, February 12, 2025, Pope rebukes Trump administration over immigrant deportation and appears to aim directly at Vance. So if you don't know that this ongoing feud, it's very ironic that JD Vance meets with the guy after disparaging him over and over and over and being in an ongoing feud with the man for months. Then they meet yesterday. Now he's no longer alive. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying it's very ironic.
So what you're saying is don't invite JD Vance over.
No, I'm saying that's
barbecue.
that's MAGA logic. That's MAGA logic.
Yeah,
if this was some holy MAGA religious, if Paula White ended up unalived and had met with a liberal, this is what they would be saying. That's just a little MAGA logic for you.
That is so true and such a good point. There has been a battle spearheaded by JD. I mean, a lot of his crazy rhetoric, and the Pope has responded. And I guess, like you said, one of the most likely the most liberal Pope that we'll probably see in our lifetime. Who knows? But he's been very assertive and aggressive and pushed back, especially embracing marginalized communities more so than I can ever remember from a Pope in at least in my lifetime.
In our lifetimes, for sure. He was the most liberal. Yeah, I mean, he was wasn't he from South America? I think that had something to do with it.
That is well,
South America radicalized me. If you don't understand what the United States has done to South America, you can't be there, especially not grow up there and not understand like the world's and the global South disdain for the United States.
It's so true. And just as a quick reminder, friends, we as we're talking about so much news that pops in our faces every single day, new merch in the merch store. I read the news today. Oh boy. If you guys want to go pick up that's also available in the merch store. So we'll be tracking this over the course of the day. Obviously, you're seeing world leaders come out and make statements, and I'm sure the president has said something.
Hopefully, Couch Boy will apologize.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, somebody might want to check the Pope's last cup of tea or whatever it was after he was in the same room with JD.
Can we plug our live on Wednesday really quick?
Go for it.
Do you have the background?
There next. I think do I have it? I don't know if I have it because
send it to you. It's in the chat.
Is working on it. It is. Hold on. If you send it to me, I have it
in the group. Yeah. Well, I put it in the group chat, so you can just download it from there. But I can text it to you quickly if you need me to. Yeah, she's working on more things, but so if in case you don't know, and I've been talking about this on the People's Receipts every day, this Wednesday, Matt, USMC, Angry Veteran, Steve, and I will be doing a night live, right? We've been talking about this for a while. We were thinking leading up to the midterms, we were going to do a series of virtual town halls or figure out how we can get involved and, isn't this amazing? By the way, Cootery did this. She's such an amazing artist. If you don't know, she's an amazing graphic artist who's extremely talented. But mark this. This is this Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be between 2 to 3 hours. And we're going to just be discussing the erosion of the Constitution, and what we're going to be doing from now. I mean, we're thinking like, hey, leading up to the midterms, we'll start this virtual town hall series. But due to the fact there's not going to be a country possibly by then, I think there's no time to waste. I know, chat, you can't see what you're writing. I cannot stand late things. I need to think about that. Is this going to block the chat? I'll talk to Cootery about that. We might need to change.
That's okay. We might have to change a little bit. So it's funny when I first saw this, I'm like, Felice, you look so great, and Matt and I look like we're ready for the home.
You guys will find this hilarious. Our group chat is called Two Santas and a Lady.
And a lady. It's so true. So yeah, that's coming up on Wednesday, guys. So we've been, like I said, like Felice said, we've been talking about this for a very long time. So totally ready for this to happen, and we all love Matt. So that'll be on Wednesday. 4
and hopefully there will be
Pacific,
volunteer opportunity. Yeah, like whatever we decide. Hopefully there will be ways to get involved and feel like you're making a difference. I know we all feel extremely helpless.
Indeed. So today's topic is the idea of taking out the trash under the cover of darkness. I've talked to you guys about this before, and just to kind of put it in context, there's a little sound from the West Wing that I think is appropriate because it really kind of applies in this case. They talk about, here you go.
What's Take Out the Trash Day?
Friday.
I mean, what is it?
Any stories we have to give the press that we're not wild about, we give them all in a lump on Friday.
Why do you do it in a lump?
Instead of one at a time?
I think you'd want to spread them out.
They've got X column inches to fill, right? They're going to fill them no matter what.
Yes.
So if we give them one story, that story's X column inches.
Give them 5 stories.
Fifth the size.
So that's kind of the idea. I mean, there's more to it than that. I'm going to read a little bit more about what its sort of history is. The idea is that, in particular, if the government wants the information to be public because they have to be, air quotes, transparent, but they don't want a lot of coverage around it. Obviously, it's changed because there's just not as many newspapers, and they don't really record things or publish things in column inches anymore. But the idea is we're going to try to slip this in so nobody really notices. So Felice and I were talking about this, and it's just like, so many things have happened under the cover of darkness, taking out the trash Friday nights, right? And we've got a lot of things that have happened over the past few days that have happened. So you want to touch on some of those things, because then I have the actual definition of what this.
Yeah, and this goes also. There's the parallel with 1930s Germany. I mean, the same thing would happen on Friday nights. Like, you'd be terrorized all week, flooded with information, in the press. Yeah. And then think, oh, it's over, it's the weekend, and then they would make these like horrific moves.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what we mean by taking out the trash under the cover of darkness.
Yeah, so releasing bad news or documents on a Friday afternoon in an attempt to avoid media scrutiny is often called Friday night news dump or taking out the trash by members of the media. The timing is often chosen strategically, aiming to minimize media coverage, public attention, and potential scrutiny that may arise from the news being released. The concept of the Friday news dump is rooted in the understanding that news cycles tend to be slower over the weekends, with fewer journalists and news outlets actively covering breaking news. By releasing significant information on a Friday, individuals or organizations hope that the news will receive limited media coverage and public attention, allowing controversial or unfavorable news to go relatively unnoticed or fade quickly. The Friday news dump is perceived by critics as a deliberate attempt to bury or downplay news that may have negative implications or public backlash. Also known as take out the trash day. Various types of information can be subject to a Friday news dump, including policy changes, government reports, firings, legal documents, internal memos, or even personal disclosures. This tactic has been employed by politicians, government agencies, corporations, or other entities seeking to manage the timing and perception of significant news developments. Now, Felice, you recall some examples. Go for it. I'm going to make a historical.
First, I just want to say, Catherine, thank you so much for the $5. She said, I love your brain. I appreciate it for the $5 on Cash App. Oh my gosh, what did I just do to my own email? Sorry, it disappeared. I want to make sure I got your note right. Yeah, I love your brain. Thank you. That's the nicest compliment. And then that, you can see facts in our pay apps up there at the top. Mine and his are up there. Mine's a girl has no name, just like my profile. Tips and donations are welcome. I just reinvested back into the business. I have some very expensive AI clipping software to pay for. So thank you so much, Catherine. It is so appreciated.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate you too.
Amazing. Okay. So, where I wanted to get with taking out the trash, I want to give some examples, because these are things I still, like last Tuesday when Matt and I were doing a live, Matt and I are always screaming at each other for 3 hours about the military, and people were like, had no idea what we were talking about. Matt and I are screaming at each other about how the Posse Comitatus Act is being violated. And people are like, what? When did this happen? What are you talking about? not this last Friday, a couple of days ago, but the Friday before, under the cover of darkness, in the middle of the night, Trump signed over a bunch of land across 3 states, a bunch of federal land, to the Department of Defense, made it a military installation in the middle of the night, so that if and when immigrants crossing the border basically cross into this land, it is breaking into a military installation. It is an end run around the Posse Comitatus Act. Basically, like, the Posse Comitatus Act says you cannot raise the American military on U.S. soil. Why? Because that's it's a very fascist thing to do. You're then turning the American military on U.S. citizens. And this is one of the scariest workarounds, right? This is one of the last things you do, essentially, before invoking the Insurrection Act and just moving into martial law. No one even knows that Trump has done this, because he did it in the middle of the night a week and 2 days ago. Another example, that same night, wait, what was it? Oh, yes. The tariff exceptions for Tim Apple. That happened that same Friday night.
Tim Apple.
Yeah, good old Tim Apple always gets what he wants from Trump. So those are my 2 and then there was some more this week. Do you want to talk about those facts?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple others that we can go back even further. And this initially started with the firing of 12 inspector generals in the middle of the night on a Friday. That was the first Friday of his presidency.
The night of the long knives. Those were
exactly. And I'm going to go to that in just a minute. Similarly, there was that reporting, again, taking out the trash day at the Pentagon when they removed credentials from journalists. So these are all things that happen. I mean, I've been talking about this a lot. So here we are again. So, and Felice just mentioned this. So there's some historical significance here. So let me just talk about this briefly. The Night of the Long Knives in German history, the purge of Nazi leaders by Schmittler on June 30th, 1934. Fearing the paramilitary SA had become too powerful, Hitler ordered his elite SS guards to unalive the organization's leader, including Ernst Röhm, who was unalived that night, were hundreds of other perceived opponents of Schmittler. By the end of May 1934, Schmittler had been chancellor for 16 months and dictator for 14 months under the Enabling Act, basically, which means they rewrote the German constitution to give Schmittler dictatorial powers, and this was the beginning of that. Sound familiar? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. 2 obstacles to his absolute power remained. First was his old comrade Ernst Röhm, chief of staff of the SA or the assault division of the German military, or brown shirts. Röhm wanted to have his troops incorporated into the new Wehrmacht, which was being prepared to take the place of the Reichswehr, despite the fact that the conservative-minded generals were resolutely opposed to any such contamination of the army. Second, German President Paul von Hindenburg was still alive and in office, and if he wished to, he could have stopped all of Schmittler's plans by handing power over to the Reichswehr. Schmittler, knowing that the military strength was necessary for his foreign policy and that antagonizing the generals could be fatal to himself, decided to sacrifice Röhm. Alleging that Röhm was plotting a putsch, Hitler ordered a massacre. On the night of June 30th, 1934, Röhm and many other leaders of the SA were unalived by members of Himmler's SS. Some of Schmittler's other enemies were also unalived, including the last chancellor of the Weimar Republic, Kurt von Schleicher, Gregor Strasser, who up until 1932 had been second only to Schmittler in the Nazi Party, Bavarian ex-separatist Gustav von Kahr, Edgar Jung, Catholic professor Erich Klausner, vice chancellor. You get the idea. The whole point is that they used this particular march towards fascism and dictatorial takeover as the Night of the Long Knives, which was sort of the beginning of the revolution, I guess you could say, in Nazi Germany, and that included members of the press. That included everybody.
Well,
everybody,
and I think it's important to mention
the
Night of the Long Knives was not it was opposition, but what it was opposition inside their own party, right? Like
within
that's what
party,
the common misunderstanding is. It was not that they were going out and saying, let's get the enemies. What it was and Margaret Atwood always draws this comparison. It's the rhinos. It's the real conservatives in the line of logic, right? It was if you don't understand, it was the Nazi Socialist Party. And there were Schmatzi. There were people who called, the brown shirts. These people believed truly, that they were all going to have equity, that they were going to own their own means of production, that everyone was going to share in the wealth. And Hitler was like, what? We got to get rid of these people. I'm not sharing anything. I'm not a socialist. Like, and and I would caution anyone, because I love how this is the biggest misunderstanding in Western civilization. Anytime someone's party is called, I don't know, the Chinese Communist Party, is China engaging in any form of communism? Absolutely not. I mean, they use some tenets of Marxism to lift people out of poverty. Sure, I will agree with that. I mean, and create literacy at one of the fastest rates ever seen. But no, they're not communists. They wouldn't have borders. There'd be no one in control, right? So, I mean, it was the same thing with the schmutzies. And I love listening to MAGA be like, well, they were socialists. Like that is the least educated argument to ever make. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter the words they write, right? It matters what their actions are. And that's what the Night of the Long Knives was. Getting rid of the true believers inside of their own party.
It's so true. And what I find fascinating is that we're often accused of being, fear mongering and or hyperbolic when we make these comparisons. But it's not my fault, and it's not your fault that there are so many similarities to what we see now to Nazi Germany in the 30s, the rise of the Reich, isolationist politics, Depression era government strategies regarding nationalism and isolationism and protectionism, which led to the rise of the Reich. All these things are similar to what we're seeing now. We talk about Smoot-Hawley, we talk about tariffs. There are so many examples that happened in the 20s, that, the decade of the Great Depression, that led to the rise of the Reich, which is why we talk about this shit, this is part of why we have these conversations. All right. So obviously there's so many other elements to this whole thing. Like we mentioned before, the inspectors general. Now, let's think about why, similarly to what was what we just discussed regarding the Night of the Long Knives. Why would you want to fire inspectors general? And if you're going to do it, why would you do it in the middle of the night? One can draw a conclusion that you don't want the public to know, first of all, what inspectors general do, and also those particular people are in these agencies to avoid fraud or to help root out actual fraud, waste, and abuse. So if you're going to fire the people in the middle of the night who are there to protect us from internal fraud, waste, and abuse at these 8 government agencies, then in the middle of the night doing it would be a good idea, because otherwise, what are you trying to hide? Right? What are you trying to hide?
Yeah, well, even Chuck Grassley, one of the most loyal Trump, supporters in the Senate, was like, bring my inspectors general back. These were Republicans by and large. And these were professional auditors. These are the actual people capable of tracking waste, fraud, and abuse. If your goal was to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, it seems very strange to get rid of the actual professionals that have teams to track waste, fraud, and abuse. But MAGA, you would have to be able to, read and follow lines of logic to realize that.
Yeah, or other professionals in government who might be responsible for keeping an eye on the nuclear stockpile or things like that.
Or here's another example. People don't, when I made the mistake of debating last week and I was told I should be graped for being smarter than a man. One of these Republicans or conservatives was telling me that, that J6 was FBI agents. And I was like, Hey, did you know, I know you can't read, but did you know 4 months ago an 88-page report was released by who? The DOJ Inspector General, which is another the DOJ Inspector General released a report on, I think, like December 11th, like almost a month to the day after the election when Biden was still in office, that clarifies, no, there were no FBI agents at the Capitol. Now, there were confidential informants, right? Like sure. Inside the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And they were explicitly told, don't go inside the Capitol. And some of those Correct. Wackos didn't listen. But outside of that, and those types of reports never go Trump's way, right? That's the thing with real people do real research. Those reports never come out going Trump's way.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you guys. Thank you for that. Thanks, Chris. for you. Thank you for first again for everybody for being here. And then I want to say this. I say this every single week, but Felice gets up so damn early to be able to do this with us. I know she's happy to be here, but we're more happy to have her. So everybody thank Felice by gifting her, and don't forget her Cash Apps and Pay App and Venmo are above my head along with mine. So thank you all in advance. I know we want to get into to chapter 2 of Signalgate. I think it's really, really important in our little back and forth text with Matt yesterday. We're all like, and Felice is like, damn it, I knew it.
Before we get into this really quick, I just want to say 2 more things about these taking out the trash in the middle of the night. This last Friday, it happened again. What happened in the middle of the night? Why would the Supreme Court wait till 1 a.m. to tell Trump he cannot remove anyone else from this country under the Alien Enemies Act? If you don't know that happened because you sleep like a normal person in the middle of the night, it's because the Supreme Court is so deferential to Trump, right? But John Roberts knows he has created a monster and has to do something to stop him. So he waits till 1 a.m., that coward, on a Friday night when everyone's asleep to say, in an unsigned order, didn't even have the guts to sign it, saying you cannot remove anyone else from this country. And if you don't know, if you were watching the People's Receipts on Friday, because Aaron Reichlin Melnick is my immigration lawyer god, like, all of the information I get comes from Aaron Reichlin Melnick, who's testifies in front of Congress like once a month. He's amazing. And he was saying that they had a plane ready to go, right? They had buses. They were loading people again.
Loading people up.
To take them under the Alien Enemies Act again to El Salvador. And that's why John Roberts had to do something. He's like, oh God, here we go again. Bunch of innocent people are about to be flown to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act. And he stopped it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, he's well, it's bigger.
He said stop.
Exactly.
For all we know, those planes still went there. Who knows?
That's exactly right. And what's really important to point out here is just another example.
They didn't, because people are tracking the flight plan. People are tracking the flight plans. Those planes did not leave, technically.
It's just really important that people may never have heard of the term "take out the trash" or Friday news dumps, and I've been talking about that for a very long time. So when you start to see it, folks, so when you're looking at the news on Saturday morning, you're not going to get a lot of coverage of things for a variety of reasons. But these are some of the things that are happening under the cover of darkness. Now, don't forget, KK Caroline stands out in front of the press room at the dais in the press room and says, "This is the most transparent administration of all time." Well, obviously, while she's lying to you, holding her cross so it doesn't burn her chest, this is what's happening behind the scenes. So before we get into this, I just want to read the Easter message from the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon. And I want to read this
Praise
in particular.
The Lord.
Exactly. I want to read this in particular because remember when Joe Biden did that press conference and the lights were red behind him and it was very almost ominous, and the right lost their shit because they said he was going after them, or when Hillary called Trump voters a basket of deplorables? Well, happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring unalivers, D-lords, dangerous prisoners, and the mentally insane and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back into our country. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials. That's nice. Who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposely allowed millions of criminals, all caps, to enter our country, totally unvetted and unchecked, through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. He was by far our worst and most incompetent president, a man who had absolutely no idea what he was doing. But to him, and to the person that ran and manipulated the auto pen, perhaps our real president, and to all of the people who cheated in the 2020 presidential election in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you, with great love, sincerity, and affection, a very happy Easter.
No, I know. And I also want to remind people, because I was thinking about this. I don't know if everyone remembers a year ago, but I think it's worth mentioning because that, MAGA, I like to point out that you are giant hypocrites who can't read.
Yeah.
Remember last year what was going on? on Easter. Republicans, this is March 31, 2024. Republicans slams Biden for proclaiming Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter.
Oh, right.
Though it's yearly observed.
Correct.
On the same day every year. So I just want to help MAGA because I know you guys can't count. So you can't understand how calendars work because that would require a basic knowledge. On the same day every year, right? You know, March 31st this year was Trans Visibility Day, but it just didn't happen to fall on the same day as Easter. Does that make sense, MAGA? And we had, because you guys can't count, you don't know how the time and space work together, how calendars work, you can't read. We had to hear you screaming because Easter and Trans Visibility Day happened to fall on the same day. Sometimes like every 3-4 years, my birthday is on Father's Day. Same thing. You guys couldn't find your way out of a paper bag if your life depended on it. Sorry.
That is so true. That's okay. Since we just heard that rant, I got a hot mic report from the president's physician that I'm going to play for you guys. So this is breaking news in case you haven't heard this.
No, I know I lied. Listen, when he came in, we went to do the height. He put a stool down, stepped on it. And when I said, Mr. President, we can't do that, he turned to me and said, have you ever been to El Salvador? Oh my God, when he stepped on the scale, he put 1 foot forward, 1 foot on the floor, then kind of weeble wobbled until he got the weight that he wanted. He said, that's what I weigh. That's what I fucking weigh. Due process is out the window, buddy. Fuck. Oh God, the blood work. When he took off his shirt, he unbuttoned his pants. He lifted his front butt and pulled out 6 vials of blood. Where they came from, he said, oh, that's Junior's blood, as in Don Jr.
Oh, God.
That blood tested positive for every amphetamine under the sun, but surprisingly healthy lab work. I tried to give him the cognitive test. He ripped it up and then proceeded to give me his McDonald's order. Then he sang the Big Mac song. You know, to all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Well, there's that. We
What's that? Can you explain? Because some of us are a little. What were we just listening to?
So this woman on TikTok, she does comedy, and she did her own interpretation of what the actual physical might have been like. As she was
okay, I get it. I didn't know
Trump's
what she was talking about. I got it. That's hilarious. Okay.
I love when she said his weight. So he put 1 foot on the scale, then he kind of weeble wobbled until he got the weight that he wanted, and then he unfolded his front butt and took out 6 vials of blood.
Part. I was like, Jr.'s. I knew we were talking about Trump. I just didn't know exactly what we were talking about. That was hilarious. I heard that. Disgusting. Okay. And just attention. I just want to point out, where is the rage for Trump putting Easter on Schindler's birthday? He did it on purpose. He did it on purpose, everyone, and no one said anything. Everyone needs to think about that. He did that on purpose, and he was supporting the devil's lettuce. Why would you have Easter on 420? It's so wrong. It's so wrong, seriously. And no one mentioned it, but it's so wrong.
But he's a Christian. All right, so look, why don't we get into? Let's talk about Signalgate, Felice. Round 2. So, in case those of you who are not aware. Because again, with all the chaos and mayhem from the Trump administration, they want to throw as much out there as possible so that we can all avert our eyes from the absolute incompetence, corruption, et cetera, that exists in the current administration. So you all recall Signalgate when Mike Walls sucked in a contact information from an Atlantic journalist, and that whole thing was crazy.
Could happen to anyone. Could happen to anyone.
Could happen to anybody. Could happen to anybody. And of course, the intelligence officials, intelligence in air quotes, Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and Mike Walls, they all lied about it and lied over and over about it, tried to blame somebody else.
Can I just say something where I have to interrupt? Okay, Michelle and anyone else that's confused, it's a joke.
Yeah,
we were making a joke. We don't think that Trump decides what day Easter is. It's a joke because last year, MAGA, who doesn't understand how calendars work, said that Biden purposely put Trans Visibility Day, which is always March 31st, regardless of when Easter is, on Easter. And there were hundreds of articles in the press. So I'm just simply pointing out that Trump put Easter on 420 and on Schindler's birthday. And for some reason, I didn't see the same outrage in the press. Maybe that's because liberals know how calendars work.
Oh, there's that. Yeah, liberals know how water works, so that's different. Anyway, we were talking about how the original Signal Gate was. You guys might remember, but for those of you who don't, we talk about this because the news likes to bury it. It became this horrible thing where classified war plans were used on an unauthorized app. There were people on the thread that should not have been there, including a journalist. Well, that same information we just learned over the weekend. Again, try to bury the news. We learned over the weekend that Pete Hegseth shared that same information about F-18 strikes and Houthi targets in Yemen, et cetera, with a group on Signal that included his wife, his personal assistant, his brother, who knows who else were included in that. So here we are now in an attempt to justify, again, the hiring only the best. Who's going to take the fall now? So there's a lot of reporting within the Pentagon about how unbelievably disorganized and completely chaotic they are. So you want to talk about that? Because then I can get into, unless you have some data, because I've got a whole story about how horrible the reaction is in the Pentagon and how people are feeling like this is
Are you referring to the Politico article? There's a great Politico article. I'll put it in the Discord because it's a free article that anyone can read in case you don't subscribe to the New York Times. But yeah, I mean, and I talked about this before, and this is also a good lesson, like, just read closely whenever updates. It's ironic because 3 times last week, people came into my lives during the week into the People's Receipts and were like, Pete Hegseth is fired. And I was like, oh God. And then I would go find the article and it's like, Pete's assistant is fired. Pete's second assistant is fired. Pete's chief of staff has left, right? So that's what's been going on. And it all started with, and it could happen to anyone. How many times has your phone sucked up a contact? We all know. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I added the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to my group chats. Happens to the best of us. It could happen to anyone. It's just fine. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it started there. And then if you remember, because they're not going to fire anyone, and how my brain sees patterns, right? Mm-hmm. I think highly intelligent people do see the world in patterns. And I think a major difference that I'm going to call out between Trump's first term and this term is that Trump before, right? Because he was new and he wanted to seem like, oh, it's not my fault, right? He would throw people under the bus. Like something bad would happen. He'd be like, let's fire this person. Now his new strategy is, I apologize for nothing. I don't care how incompetent people are. I don't care how many Americans' lives are endangered. I don't care how many mistakes are made. I'm going to let I didn't make this up, but as Matt calls him, the cirrhosis of defense, stay in office and keep making egregious mistakes, right? I mean, that seems to be it. Like, don't apologize to no one. Do not, don't react. Don't fire my incompetent loser staff. Just pretend like it's not happening. Bend reality. So the response to Mike Waltz, being a complete loser was Laura Loomer showing up in the White House and making up a couple conspiracy theories and blaming random people who very clearly had nothing to do with Mike Waltz accidentally adding Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal chat, and they were fired. And then similarly, if you don't know, what's been going on for a couple of weeks now in the Pentagon is lie detector tests. They believe that people are leaking things, like they're embarrassed by Signal chat, or they just need someone to blame, because by all accounts, right, nobody is leaking things. It's the Department of Defense. Like, you can't do anything without they would find out, right? There's ways of knowing who did what, but they've been giving people lie detector tests. Then they started firing people to cover up for Pete Hegseth. And I can't tell you if it's the chicken or the egg, right? It's true. As a result of firing a bunch of people who were innocent, because 3 of the people that have been fired were on this second Signal chat with Pete Hegseth's wife, his lawyer, who, by the way, people are like, his personal lawyer is getting war plans. I want you to know who it is. It's not just any personal lawyer. Pete Hegseth, remember the guy who was threatening the Republican, the white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Republican lady who was raped, or who was credibly accused, Pete Hegseth, of rape at a Republican conference in California?
Yes.
It's Timothy Parlatore, the man who was silencing her, and also was one of the lawyers in the Mar-a-Lago docs case that was defending Trump. That's who it is. So it's not just any random guy. This guy is so entangled in the Trump administration. It's disgusting. But yeah, that's the new strategy. So they've been dismissing people. And I don't know if this is backlash. Like, oh, you're blaming us for your incompetence. Well, why don't we share about the other Signal chats we were all on? And it says in in the Politico article, that we're talking about, and the New York Times article that refers to this, that those aides, the ones who have been dismissed, tried to tell Pete, hey, you cannot be on your, and I want to make this clear, personal phone. He is not on a government device doing this. He's on his personal phone, sharing with his wife. Steve, remember when you sent me wasn't it you that sent me the video about how his wife was in Belgium in war meetings?
Yes, sitting behind the table where they're all discussing strategy.
And his wife. This woman out of here. She has no security clearance. Now she's in a second Signal chat. Why not add your barber, your tattoo artist, your Christian nationalist tattoo artist, and whoever else? I mean, just get your gardener into the chat too.
Yeah, bring your dad to work to school day. You can sit around and your dad can tell you all about the war plans that we're going to use F-18 Hornets to go after.
All this is confirmed. Yeah, you could not report this with the type of retribution Trump is trying. This is confirmed because, like I'm saying, the people who they fired and accused of being leakers were on these Signal chats too, and they tried to tell Pete Hegseth, hey, you cannot be on your personal phone in these chats discussing this stuff. Are you crazy?
And this is part of how we're talking about, taking out the trash. You recall one of the Friday night purges was in the press room at the Pentagon, removing the credentials for NPR, AP, only to be replaced by, OAN and Newsmax and places like that. Now, why? Again, why would you only want biased coverage as opposed to general coverage of what's happening? Well, it's because of things like this. So the story goes, the Pentagon is in total, this is from Politico, the Pentagon is in total chaos, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is unlikely to remain in his role, according to its former top spokesperson, who painted a scene of dysfunction, backstabbing, and continuous missteps at the highest levels of the department. Quote, the building is in disarray under Hegseth's leadership, wrote John Ulyat Sunday for Political Magazine. The dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership. Ulyat, who resigned from the Pentagon last week, described the department in collapse. He accused Hegseth's team of falsehoods about why 3 top officials were fired last week, saying they hadn't leaked sensitive information to the media. He chastised Pentagon officials for how they handled revelations that Hegseth shared sensitive military information in a Signal chat, and he pointed to other leaks that caused embarrassment to the administration. The remarkable accusations by a former official who left only 2 days ago and insists he still supports the Trump administration's national security policies underscores the infighting and upheaval that has turned increasingly public in recent weeks. But he also found himself in the center of several controversies that added to that chaos. Ulyat was sidelined after he defended the removal in March of a story discussing the service of baseball legend Jackie Robinson, part of a larger purge of diversity-related military web pages. The last month has been a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon, and it's becoming a real problem for the administration, he wrote. The DOD and the White House did not respond to requests for comment. The Pentagon on Friday fired top staffers. Listen to the list of people that got fired, in case you guys had not been paying attention. Senior Advisor Dan Caldwell, Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff to the Deputy Defense Secretary Joe Casper. Hegseth Chief of Staff will also leave his role in the coming days for a new position at the agency, according to a senior administration official. Hegseth is now presiding over a strange and baffling purge that has left him without senior advisors. More firings may be coming, according to the rumors in the building. Now, let's think about that for a second. When they talk about how you've got the conflict in Ukraine, you've got rising tensions with Iran, you've got China doing China things, you've got testing in the the North Sea. You've got all kinds of chaos where you would expect military leadership to be competent. And this is what you have going on. Now, what we're expecting...
The first signal chat, Steve Witkoff was on that in the Kremlin, inside the Kremlin, waiting to talk to Putin, hanging out on an unsecured signal chat, discussing war plans.
Right. And then that relates to the whole story about the National Labor Relations Board and how they were being hacked, and the Doge team was coming in and hacking systems. And then they were being pinged from IP addresses in Russia. Then they tried to cover their tracks. So we share this with you all because we know that the right is not going to cover it, and the left does a superficial job at best discussing it. So this entire thing speaks to the fact that there is nothing but incompetence and corruption in the Trump administration, in cabinet positions, unqualified individuals in the positions that are, that basically potentially could cause us harm if we're not paying attention. So just imagine what we've learned from Pete Hegseth's tenure. First of all, it took J.D. Vance to cast a tie-breaking vote for him to get the nomination. We know that because there was enough Republicans that said no. No, not enough, but enough that forced J.D. Vance. Ever since then, it's been nothing but controversy. Was he drinking at that press conference in Brussels? What was he? We don't know.
He was out of his mind. What was he? Well, then let me just say this. If he's sober, then that's even scarier. I hope.
Agreed.
I hope he was intoxicated. If he was, we have a bigger problem if he was intoxicated. If that's just how his brain
exactly
works,
right.
Much bigger problem. Wait, and Steve, it's only fair that I present the converse argument of this. Hold on.
Please.
If there was anyone other than Hillary Clinton, they would be in jail right now.
Correct.
For what has been done. Because the assumption is in the intelligence community, if you are using unclassified means, there is the potential for and likelihood that foreign governments are targeting those accounts and gathering intelligence from them. Very well said.
Yeah, that's Pete Hegseth saying Hillary Clinton should be in jail. But her emails, if I hear one more word about Hillary Clinton's emails, you guys are an embarrassment, MAGA. Now, let me help you, MAGA, because I know your brains don't work, so let me just say it slowly. If you are not a giant hypocrite whose brain does not work, just like you had a problem with Hillary's email server, now you must call for Pete Hegseth to resign. If you are not doing that, you are a hypocritical liar.
Do you know what's
your
really
line of logic
that?
Collapses. You are in cognitive dissonance.
And Greg said it best. Her emails were more secure because we still don't know what.
Way more secure. Way more secure.
Exactly.
No, but MAGA, I hope that someone tries to request to tell me about Hillary's emails one more time. If you are not calling for Pete Hegseth to resign, if you have not abandoned Trump after the first signal chat and the fact Mike Waltz is still in office, you are a hypocrite in cognitive dissonance.
Exactly. Like Big John, I just sent you an invite because I know you won't want to talk about it, John. But if you want to come up and explain to why you don't care, that'd be an interesting conversation to have. Anyway, good morning, Eve. How are you? Thank you for being here. Happy Monday.
Good morning. Good morning to you both. Yes, happy Monday. The hypocrisy hurts my heart, man. Ugh.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, y'all know that I'm here to remind everyone to please support our fabulous hostess with the mostest. He's our sophisticated syrup sommelier, schooling sad, sloppy, smooth-brained sycophants in seconds. And he's joined by the phenomenal fan favorite, Felice. And they're here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing us facts over feelings because facts still matter and they always will. You can find the pay apps in the link tree of their bios, and Steve's, you'll find the Facts HQ and Discord link. And you can also reach the HQ via factsstillmatter.site, where we've got live sources, community resources. You can view and purchase merchandise. There's a lot of new merch in there. So if you're a sub, you can get 10% off. It's one of our perks. If you aren't a sub, I don't know what you're doing. I literally see people placing orders that aren't subscribing. You're missing out on that discount. The subscription will literally pay for itself, y'all. Come on, wake up. If you're just looking for that fun free forum for the Facts family to frolic, then Discord is the place. If the link doesn't work, please try to copy and paste it into a browser or Google. That usually works, but if it doesn't, reach out to a moderator and we'll hook you up. When you join, please open a ticket. There's a couple quick questions to answer. If you need assistance with that, you can ask away in the unverified lobby and we will walk you through it. Now, if you haven't already, please click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day, and it helps to keep us relevant and on the FYP. The main thing that we ask of y'all is to please just interact in the comments as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, just click the copy link. You know it works the same as a share and no one will be the wiser. When you have a chance after this live stream, please head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter. Like a video or two as well while you're there. You can rewatch shows for any information you missed, and subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators here on TikTok. Lastly, I'll say, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
Thank you
You're
so
amazing.
very, very much,
Thanks,
Eve.
Eve.
Really, really appreciate you, friend. Everybody, hearts in the chat for Eve, and let Eve serve as the voice and face of mods everywhere. Because Felice knows this, we could not do what we do without our amazing mods. So, hearts in the chat for mods everywhere. Thank you, Eve. I appreciate you. You ready?
Love you both. Whee!
That's awesome. By the way, I wanted to share just one more heartfelt message from the president. This was from yesterday. We are together going to make America bigger, better, stronger, wealthier, healthier, and more religious than it has ever been before. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. And in the same diatribe of craziness that he was uttering, he talked about in all caps. Remember how I've told you guys when he uses all caps, he does that because he wants you, his mouth breathing simps, to believe him bigly. Ranked choice, this is on all caps, ranked choice voting is one of the greatest threats to democracy. It is a total and very fraudulent joke. Why would you say that if you weren't afraid of democracy?
He said it.
Why, Felice? Why would he say that?
Well, because, and I was playing this recording, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is a very interesting anomaly. And I was talking about this on the People's Receipts, right? She was at a conference in Alaska, talking about how she's afraid, she's terrified of Trump and to oppose him because of the consequences, which to me, for a white woman in Alaska, seemed to be just losing power. But she's scared. And she was saying that she's going to use all the tools in her tool belt that she has learned since she was a child, which she said was being extra sweet and leveraging the relationships she's used while keeping sweet. And I was talking about this on Friday, using this as an example of this is a woman who was, a boomer raised in another era where white women, exchange, by propping up the, white supremacy and the patriarchy were given power. And she's saying, hey, like the way this relationship I had with the patriarchy, with white men, seems to be breaking down. Like the agreement was, I did what they asked, I propped them up, and then they would sort of do the right thing and protect me. And I'm finding that's not happening anymore. And part of what she was saying during that conference was, hey, the way that we can combat Trump and the consolidation of conservative power in states is with ranked choice voting. If you don't know, Alaska has ranked choice voting, right?
Maine too.
Yeah, Maine too, in very few places. And it was on the ballot in several places. It's just the bill was written it was on the ballot in Arizona and didn't pass because it was written so weird. There was like a poison pill in it. It didn't make they just wrote it up so weird. It was on the ballot in a lot of places and didn't pass, but I feel that's because it was so unclear what they were saying and it sounded awful.
It's almost like if you think
it is a way to unseat the conservatives in red states.
It is. It's almost a compromise it's almost a counter to the electoral college. Like it would step us into a better solution. So it becomes, because people talk about wanting more options. Well, you may not get more options more selections from parties, but you could get more options from candidates. That's the ultimate goal, right? By the way, I just wanted to share this. The pre-market conditions down 320 points after closing down another 500 points on Friday. Gas prices, by the way, are up again, which I think is really interesting because just last week on Truth Social, the twice impeached, four-time indicted sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon came out and said that gas prices are at record lows, and his base is now believing it, and it's being reiterated across right-wing circles. Gas prices are up from just a week ago. So I don't even know how you can claim that they're down. It's $3.15 nationally. A week ago, they were $3.14. So it's actually up. So how can gas prices be down to record lows when they're up just over last week? This is the point of gaslighting. So what they will use is they'll use a state in the South, for example, who's got low gas prices by and large, and they'll say that is the national average, and then they'll compare that to something. So this is the psyop that's happening. And
that one more time about gas prices.
Talk about these.
Can you say that one more time? Can you repeat it?
Sure. The fact that he's been telling his base that gas prices are at record lows, and right now, according to the AAA, the gas is $3.15, and yesterday it was $3. I'm sorry. $3.153. Yesterday it was 3.151. So gas prices are actually up. And Trump is going and telling
he's saying they're below $2.
Down.
Exactly. It's a complete lie. Mr. Global is regularly making videos about this. And I just want to say, and I don't know if I think I'm going to touch on this today if I get to it in the People's Receipts. You know how it is. There's so much stuff. But just understand how asinine it. First of all, Trump's lying. Number one, because of the blend of octane needed during hotter weather, gas prices always go up in the summer. As we move towards the summer, gas is more expensive because it has to do with the blend of octane that's needed during hotter months. But then outside of that, right? And I think what is important to understand is this is why MAGA, and we invited someone up who didn't actually take the invite, but I hope you're still here so you can learn something about gas prices, right? There is a difference between you going to the pump, which it's a complete lie. Gas prices are high now. They're not below $2. Mr. Global made a video and I played it last Friday. The last time gas prices, the average in the country was below $2. Guess how much oil was per barrel? $16. $16.
Yep, exactly.
On Friday, we were at $64 a barrel. But let me tell you, and here's what you need to understand, MAGA, because you can't read, your brains don't work, and you obviously can't do math. So when you see a spreadsheet, you don't know what it means. I want to help you in understanding that the reason that gas prices have to remain not extremely high, but reasonably high is because in order for U.S. oil and gas to grow, in order to tap new wells, in order to drill what Trump promised you, gas prices have to remain, ideally $65 a barrel and above, right? Because of the cost of labor in the United States, because of the cost of materials, because of literally U.S. gas and oil companies are betting their future, taking all the assets they have to tap new wells. That's why the price per barrel has to remain higher. And it's a sweet spot that they walk, right? And that's what Biden was doing, staying in a sweet spot so U.S. gas and oil could claw back market share from OPEC and Saudi Arabia. That's what we were doing. And I just want you to know, I listened to a 4-hour recording of gas and oil executives having a discussion, and we have lost any market share U.S. oil, gas and oil maintain. We have lost or will lose in the next quarter. And on top of that, right, the price per barrel of oil is expected to plummet. Meaning we are bankrupting U.S. gas and oil. We are going to cap wells, not tap them. So, and again, I'm just going to say this because you don't understand how economics and world markets and commodities work. Even if you were paying $1.98 per gallon, that would mean that U.S. gas and oil was bankrupted.
That's exactly right. So
your brains don't work so good.
I was actually critical of the Biden administration because Joe Biden is a fan of big oil. He always has been. He's a moderate Democrat. I've always been critical of that. Whether it be the Willow Project or things along those lines. Which is, at the same time, we have to accept the fact that there was limited choices. Right, that during the Biden administration, they had to address the energy cost of energy, which is then why you tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which he sold at a high price, bought it back at a low price, actually made us money. So here we are, the lies that will continue to come from the White House, $60 a barrel, it gets that number. Oil companies are capping wells. They're not going to drill anymore because, again, they're running the negative, and you're going to just continue to buy it no matter what. You will accept whatever the president tells you, which is why you're in a cult.
He's not just a fan of big oil. Like, really what it is and what Mr. Global has taught me, so I'm just going to attribute it to him, and then it caused me to do more research. U.S. Gas and Oil are not huge companies, right? Yes, there's ExxonMobil and there's BP, but there are smaller people tapping wells. It takes all of their resources, all of their assets to invest in tapping a well. That's who I'm talking about. I'm talking about smaller U.S. oil and gas companies that risk everything to tap a well. And let me tell you something. When an insane person who changes economic policy every day is in the White House, do you think you can risk everything you have to tap a well? No. Trump is driving U.S. gas and oil out of business. I'm not talking about ExxonMobil. I'm not talking about big oil. I'm talking about American U.S. gas and oil, small and medium-sized businesses that are being driven out of business because a wacko can't pick an economic strategy.
I don't know where this commenter was from, but they were saying that we were lying, that they paid $2.78. You'd have to tell us where you were, because we could look at the state of Alabama, for example, and the average in Alabama as of today is $2.77. This is why we do things like per capita, for example, or national averages.
National average is
$3.15. So
somewhere, someone could be paying $2.78. This is another example of MAGA doesn't understand math. A national average doesn't mean that you in the backwoods of wherever you are could not be paying $2.78 somewhere. Do you understand what an average is? No, you don't.
No, they don't. Okay. So I wanted to share this with you guys, since we're talking about, we'll get back into our topic, and we've got some folks that requested. We'll bring you guys up in just a minute. MAGA, if you're out there and if you don't believe what's happening is corrupt and incompetence, especially now, what excuse will you make for the Signal round 2? By the way, if you guys are interested in having somebody keep a secret, you might be better off having your teenage daughter than the Secretary of Defense. That might be a better solution to having secrets kept, but that's just me. So I found this is interesting. The shocking amount of time it takes these companies to make $1 million in profit. Netflix makes $1 million in profit in 1 hour, 37 minutes. McDonald's, 1 hour and 2 minutes. Coca-Cola, 49 minutes. AT&T, 37 minutes. Tesla, 35 minutes. Amazon, 17 minutes. JP Morgan Chase, 11 minutes. Microsoft makes $1 million in profit in 7 minutes. Google makes $1 million in profit in 7 minutes. And Apple makes $1 million in profit in 5 minutes. Every one of those companies was represented at the inauguration. Every one of those companies will continue to get corporate subsidies. All those CEOs will benefit from said subsidies, which is why we talk about this as the oligarchs taking over America. And how is it that we have people that are complaining about the price of gas and the price of eggs in rural Alabama are voting for Apple getting $1 million, making $1 million in profit in 5 minutes? Explain that to me.
Yeah. Also explain how last week a federal court declared Google as an advertising monopoly in the United States. And I used to work in digital advertising specifically. So this is something I know a lot about. right? And I find it very ironic. Like I'm talking to you, MAGA leftists, because I watch you follow me around from live to live and say unintelligent things. Follow me around. And say unintelligent things in the chat all the time and never have the guts to show your face. Come up here and say all of those asinine comments and we can have a conversation. Yeah. Nothing you say makes any sense. And let me say it again slower for you. You are being robbed. You spend 24 hours a day going from live to live, defending the man who's consolidating a bunch of billionaires around him and robbing you blind, making it impossible for upward mobility, for small businesses to thrive, bringing on techno-feudalism in this country. And you are carrying water while you sink in the life raft with all of the rest of us in the middle class and lower classes drowning. You spend your life, oh my God, and you're ignorant enough. That's how I know you can't do math. Because if you could do math, you would know that you were being robbed. You are not smart enough to even know. But again, at any moment, you can request and say those asinine things up here. But my guess is you don't have the guts. And do you want to know why? Because not one fact, not one piece of data is on your side. You're just yelling feelings. That's all you ever do. You say, I have feelings. And guess what? You are literally being home invaded every single day by Donald Trump. He's taking every single thing you have while you scream in defense of him. But again, at any moment, push that request button and come up here. He's taking your VHS collection, MAGA leftists. He's taking your members-only jackets. Yep, he's taken all those. So, Stacey, thank you for your patience. What's on your mind today? You can unmute your mic, Stacey. I'll send you an invite to unmute your mic. Stacey going once. Stacey going twice. Okay. You can request again if you want to come back up, Stacey. Okay, yeah, MAGA leftists, we sent you an invitation. Please come up and join us. Because you're just afraid. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. And just as a reminder, we're trying to get 26 subscribers between now and Friday, which will get us to 150. If we can do that, we'll do a contest for subscribers where winners will get their choice of 2 merch items and or a comparable charitable donation. And we'll also do a subscriber-only event, but we need 150 people to get that done. So and we should be at 200K right now. So everyone tap like your life depended upon it. Let's go. Keep tapping. Thank you so much. MAGA leftist, keyboard warrior, please stop talking to people about your feelings in the chat. You're distracting people from actual learning.
That's exactly right. Jill, I just muted your mic for a second because you had some background noise. What's on your mind? Please, you can unmute your microphone and join us. I'm waiting for Jess. I'm prepared to get the glitter beard. I'm just waiting for Jess to tell me. I'm just waiting for instructions. I will glitter my beard. It's coming. Jill, are you there? Okay. All right. Okay, so we talked about a few things. And the reason that I think this is really, really important, because as we're reminded every single day, there are strategic tactics that the right likes to use, overwhelm the masses. Steve Bannon's referred to as the muzzle velocity of mis and disinformation, because the tariff issue is just failing miserably. And because the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing, fraudulent convicted felon does not know anything about economics, he is still doubling down, saying that exporting countries are still the ones that are paying the tariffs. He's still lying to his voters, and his voters are still believing it. All these little stories will get backburnered because they will come up with something else. So I don't think people realize somebody made the comment, I think it was MAGA leftist saying, hey, what happened? You guys have been claiming martial law. Well, yesterday was a big day. 420 was a big day. It marked 90 days since Inauguration Day. And there was a report due from the SecDef, although he might be a little bit busy now.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, there's a report from it was due yesterday. The
DHS and the DOD. Yeah.
Right. So about the status of the invasion. Right. And at that point, there was reporting and or rumors that martial law was going to be declared, or the Insurrection Act, or the Alien Enemies Act. So we know that rulings from the Supreme Court have sort of changed this. Here's where it's interesting, though, because just last week, they went public claiming that border crossings are down to 7,000 a day. that they've got the border under control. So if that's the case, then why would you need a report on the invasion? Remember, MAGA, one of the things that you voted for him for was not only your price of eggs, price of gas, everything else, was because of the alien invasion, mass deportation. We already know that constitutional rights are being violated every single day. We already know that you're being lied to about that status. So that if he doesn't use the Insurrection Act and or the Alien Enemies Act to round up more brown-skinned people, and when the tariff plan spikes inflation like crazy, like it's going to do in April. Don't forget, most of the tariffs went into effect in April. We saw the inflation rate drop from 2.8 in February to 2.4% in March. It's going back up again, no doubt about it. What is your answer going to be? Who are you going to blame? Who is going to be in your crosshairs? Better said, who is Trump going to tell you to blame?
Exactly. And you'll believe him. Because Trump said, even though every single thing Trump says is verifiably untrue, you still will believe him because you can't find your way out of a paper bag. Keep going, though. You're looking great at this point. I just want to point out, because I've talked about this before. I know we have 10 days left with Rachel Maddow, and Andy, it sucks. If you don't know, Rachel Maddow is doing 5 days a week shows in the first 100 days of the administration. If you don't know, it's day 90. So that means only a few more days of Rachel Maddow's absolute factual, data-driven genius. I will so miss it. But here's the fact, like, as it declares, just to be clear, like, again, that 4/20 was the date in which a report is due, which the report can be delivered, and then at any time after that, Trump can invoke the Insurrection Act and say there's an invasion. But unfortunately, and this is what I want to talk about, the data is not on Trump's side. I mean, which we know Trump has no problem just making up pathological lies and saying whatever. So I do expect, and so twofold. First, on the data. Yeah, go ahead. I just want to give facts because you know me, I love giving facts. The height of encounters at the southern border was December 2023, which, I think the 1 week rolling average was 8,000 or 8,500, but the actual end number of encounters is in this amazing article. So I want to say it. So in December 2023, there was 883 encounters, 370,883 encounters, right? That was the height of immigration and encounters at the southern border. Okay. And then let's say in June 2024, that is when Biden did that executive order. From June 2024 to December 2024, that is 6 months and 1 year from the numbers I just gave you, the height of encounters at the southern border. Prior to Trump ever being in office and saying there was some invasion he needed to take control of, encounters at the southern border had already been reduced by 75%. This was a non-issue. There was no invasion before Trump even entered office. You guys just see brown people and you're convinced that someone's taking something from you, which again, immigrants don't have your money. You're being robbed by billionaires. The billionaires you continuously vote for and carry water for and defend with your life without any facts or data to support your beliefs. Those are the people who are robbing you. But for some reason, Trump said billionaires were robbing you, and then you believed them. And so again, prior to Trump ever getting in office, encounters were reduced by 75%. Then in March, right, or I want to make sure I get this right, have plunged with 7,180 encounters of migrants reported. And that's total, not a 1 week rolling average. Correct. Total in the month of March 2025. And I want to be clear, the average for the 2 Marches prior, 2024, 2023, was 155,000 because weather warms up, it gets more temperate. It's usually a high traffic for migration at the southern border time. There is factually zero invasion at the southern border. It has been reduced to nothing. And I just want to say how many encounters in February? 28,654. March, 7,180 total for the whole month. Normally we speak in rolling averages. Total.
dailies.
There is zero invasion at the southern border. So that brings me to my next point. If ever, he doesn't have to do it on April 20th. That was the date. Yesterday was when that report was due. If the Department of Defense and Christie, I am hanging around with my boyfriend, Corey Lewandowski, pretending to run the Department of Homeland Security, NOM. Oh, also, I unalived my dog in a gravel pit, NOM. Decide to say that he needs to invoke the Insurrection Act, right? He doesn't have to do it on the 20th. He can do it anytime. And the reason I love this article so much is because and I'll send it to everyone in my Discord, they're giving examples of when it has been invoked. So, and it really taught me something. What Trump's going to do is just say, hey, I just need to do this for a second. Like apparently Reagan invoked the Insurrection Act for 11 days to get control, to use the U.S. military to get control of a prison. So Trump will be like, oh, I just need to do this for a hot second, just declare some martial law. And then he'll never stop. You remember, he was going to be a dictator for one day. Remember? Right. And you guys said that we were all being hyperbolic. And now we live in an authoritarian society with no due process where people are being disappeared. Remember all that? That is what we are talking about.
It's got a programming note. So on this coming Wednesday from 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time, myself, USMC Angry Vet Matt, and Felice are hosting the first of what we hope is many virtual town halls. We've been talking about this for a very, very long time. You know, we're all very passionate about defense against democracy, and we're still working on a name. I think we landed on one, but we're still working on that. So that'll be on this coming Thursday night. We'll do it here. We'll host it on this platform, but it'll probably rotate around between the three of us. It will be open to guests. It will be open to panelists. We are going to have actually the three of us are going to meet later today to talk about some more details, but we put our brains together, came up with a mission statement, came up with an outline, came up with a whole bunch of shit that our brains were on overdrive. So if you guys don't mind coming back, regular programming all week long, and then we'll jump in on Wednesday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you to Cootery for doing this amazing background. Much appreciated. All right, back to our topics. Everybody keep tapping and sharing. I really love to see Felice above 5K by the end of the live today, and we should be easily at 250,000 right now. And just another reminder, please consider subscribing. Check out the new merch. I read the news today. Oh boy, available in the merch store. All right, I want to kind of talk about this. We touched on it before. This is about how stories get covered, stories get hidden, stories get tossed out with the trash. So the whistleblower regarding the National Labor Relations Board story, I think, has been underreported grossly, and how incredibly damning this information is. Again, it's reported. This comes from NPR. A whistleblower's disclosure details how DOJ may have taken sensitive labor data. In the first days of March, a team of advisors from Trump's DOJ team arrived at the Southeast Washington, D.C. headquarters of the National Labor Relations Board, also known as NLRB. The small independent federal agency investigates and adjudicates complaints about unfair labor practices. It stores reams of potentially sensitive data from confidential information about employees who want to form unions to proprietary business information. Okay? The DOJ employees, who are effectively led by White House advisor and billionaire tech CEO Elon Musk, or Elmo as Felice likes to call him, appear to have their sights set on accessing the NLRB's internal systems. They've said their unit's overall mission is to review agency data for compliance with the new administration's policy and to cut costs and maximize efficiency. On that cost-cutting set, I just want to share this real quick. Initially, Elon Musk said it was $2 trillion in savings. Then they downgraded that to $1 trillion. Then they have downgraded it again to $150 billion. And by the way, money spent during this time of the president, the Trump's, go ahead, go for it.
Just want to say, because I was like, actually, because, you know, I'm obsessed. If you don't know doge.muskwatch.com, there are computer scientists in coordination with an amazing independent journalist named Judd Legume, who are tracking this, right? They're auditing the fake Doge wall of receipts. You know, every major publication has discovered that Space Karen or Elmo, however you like to call Elon Musk, is lying about his Doge wall of receipts. So there, if you go to doge.muskwatch.com, you can watch in real time. And here's the funny part about what you're saying. He downgraded to say we're going to have $150 billion in savings. And at the time he said that, I was on the doge.muskwatch.com tracker, and actually he was close. He was at and I'm talking about the actual itemized cuts, right? They're not verifiable canceled funding, but they're itemized cuts. And they were over 100 billion. So I was like, oh, maybe even though they're not verified cancelable funding, maybe he's getting close and he thinks he can get there. And that's why he's saying that. And this is now, I just want to say, because every time the Doge lying wall of receipts is updated, so is this tracker. And now the claimed cuts are at 155 billion, but the Doge itemized cuts, the reality, they went from being at over 100 billion to 61.5 billion. Verified canceled funding, 12.6 billion. So even since he said that, he's dropped down below half. I was like, maybe he'll get there. He's not getting anywhere near it. This is a complete joke.
And then the CBO, to piggyback onto that, the CBO did an analysis of a time frame compared the first 75, 80 days this year to the same time period last year. And the current administration has spent $154 billion. And in the previous time during the Biden administration, they spent $150 billion. So all those cuts, and they're actually spending more money. And then, of course, Trump wants a parade.
Just to be clear, no administration has ever spent more on the federal government than Donald Trump is spending right now. So MAGA, correct. I know I want you to, don't just hear me. I want you to listen for comprehension as a second grade teacher. It's time to open your ears, sit crisscross applesauce, and receive a message. You are not saving any money. Donald Trump is spending trillions more than you are saving. There is no Doge savings. It doesn't exist. We are being driven into debt. And I'm talking about the type of debt that your grandchildren's grandchildren will be paying off. You got.
Yeah. And then we were supposed to get our Doge checks on February the 30th, but I didn't get mine. Did you get yours, Felice, on February 30th?
Any day now. The check's in the mail. It's trickling down, Steve. The checks are trickling down.
That's right. They're trickling down. That's exactly right. They're trickling down to all of us. So again, back to this whistleblower story. So according to an official whistleblower disclosure shared with Congress and other federal overseers that was attained by NPR, subsequent interviews with the whistleblower and records of internal communications, technical staff members were alarmed about what Doge engineers did when they were granted access, particularly when those staffers noticed a spike in data leaving the agency. It's possible that the data included sensitive information on unions, ongoing legal cases, and corporate secrets, data that 4 labor law experts tell NPR should almost never leave the NLRB. And that has nothing to do with making the government more efficient on cutting spending. Meanwhile, according to the disclosure and records of internal communications, members of the Doge team asked that their activities not be logged on the system and then appeared to try to cover their tracks behind them, turning off monitoring tools and manually deleting records of their access. Evasive behavior, to say the least, that several cybersecurity experts interviewed by NPR compared to what criminal or state-sponsored hackers might do. Oh, but there's more. The employees grew more concerned that the NLRB's confidential data could be exposed, particularly after they started detecting suspicious login attempts from an IP address in, say it with me, friends, Russia. According to the disclosure, eventually the disclosure continued. The IT department launched a formal review of what it deemed a serious ongoing security breach or potentially illegal removal of personally identifiable information. The whistleblower believes that the suspicious activity warrants further investigation by agencies with more resources like the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at the FBI, which, by the way, Pam Bondi eliminated. So, point of this story, as it relates to what we're talking about, these are the kinds of things that if you are a transparent administration, you would certainly want to tell your public about how transparent you are. Instead, you've got the camp counselors in training, the Doge boys, going into the NLRB, along with, this is what we know, I'm sure there's numerous examples of more, and then exposing, not only being careless with security access, but literally opening back doors. And then the data finds Russian-based IP addresses hacking said information, even if they had to hack it. Maybe they're just uploading packets of information, and then the people who are responsible for opening up the door, so to speak, are attempting to use tools to cover their tracks. Explain that to me. Explain how that is not getting more coverage. Why are Hillary's emails, though? Right, Felice? Hillary's emails.
You guys, but Hillary bleached her emails, and that's a thing that we all need to be concerned. Hillary poured bleach on her emails, as we all well know. So that cancels that out. No, yeah, I want to just say the Washington Post right now has another Washington Post exclusive, because there was one yesterday that I was putting in the group chat, like about how, just so you know, the White House blueprints have been now emailed to hundreds of thousands, have been now sent to hundreds of thousands of people, and other data leaks. And today's Washington Post exclusive is the federal 5 things emails have fallen apart as Elon Musk readies his exit. If you don't know the way these commissions work and stuff, Elon Musk has to leave soon, right? He can't legally be there. I mean, not that Trump cares about legality, but I think I want to be clear, MAGA, you've saved no money. This federal government has spent more than Biden's government. Not $1 was saved. The only thing that's happened is every investigation against billionaire monopolies like Amazon, like Tesla, have gone away. They've cleared themselves of accountability for robbing us, the American people, awarded themselves billions in government contracts, and now they're just going to disappear into the night. The only thing that happened was a huge transfer of wealth to the top of the economy. When will you get tired of being wrong?
And keep in mind, I know we've talked about this before, but 2 particular agencies that gained a lot of attention by design from Musk and Trump, saying that they were going after all this waste, fraud, and abuse, was USAID and the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau. Those 2 agencies in particular had numerous investigations against Elon Musk and his companies. USAID in particular because of money that he got to provide Starlink support in Ukraine and other locations. They were looking for accounting, and all of a sudden USAID is under the watch of Doge and Musk and all these claims of fraud. And then the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau, again, another agency that was investigating Elon Musk for some of his fraudulent practices. Also, the National Labor Relations Board investigating him for anti-labor sentiment and corruption. So if you guys want to talk objectively about waste, fraud, and abuse, then let's talk about it. If you generally want to talk about how Elon Musk, since becoming the whatever he is in the government, has been enriching himself, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about actual waste, fraud, and abuse. Because I know Felice very well. If we can identify true waste, fraud, and abuse, sign me up. Absolutely. Let's start at the Pentagon. Absolutely. Let's talk about
the $100,000 soap dispensers on military planes.
Right. You're not going to find any disagreement from anybody on the left or in the middle that there is excess and wasteful spending. Let's get to the bottom of it. Sorry. Something
weird there aren't more requests with MAGA with all their mathematics and facts defending Doge. I thought you guys were sure that he was rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Where are your spreadsheets and where's your data? I'm so very confused about it, where all you are with the actual data. So strange. Whenever it comes to data, being data driven and fact driven, all of a sudden silence. It's the weirdest thing. If what you guys want to debate people who will let you yell your feelings, but anytime someone demands math or facts, all of a sudden crickets from you people, because you can't do math, or there's no way you would be supporting Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They are robbing you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Just again, we talked about this before. Just because you disagree with something does not mean it's fraudulent. Just because something costs more than you think it should doesn't mean it's waste. Just because there's agencies that are providing humanitarian programs and services like clean water and resources to fight against the next epidemic does not mean it's abuse. So this is part of the lie that you've been told. This is part of the, again, like I said before, I'll say it again. If there is actual waste, fraud, and abuse, then let's find it. Let's
Amen.
find it.
Let's root it out.
Let's root it out.
Exactly. And that's what the inspector Jinx. That's why Trump fired the real auditors. Those were the people. And you know what's funny? Whenever Trump would get in trouble and they'd be caught in all these lies about the Doge rollover receipts, you know who Trump would start quoting? The inspector generals he fired. They would cite the General Accounting Office reports from inspector generals. They would cite the Social Security reports from the inspector generals during the what now? Say it with me. Biden administration.
Correct.
That's what they would fall back on. But he had to get rid of them because Trump doesn't want auditors auditing him because he's wasting trillions and trillions of dollars getting richer.
Let's go. Just want to go back to this story regarding the whistleblower at the NLRB. The labor law experts interviewed by NPR fear that if the data gets out, it could be abused, including by private companies with cases before the agency that might get insights into damaging testimony. Union leadership, legal strategies, and internal data on competitors, Musk's SpaceX among them. It could also intimidate whistleblowers who might speak up about unfair labor practices, and it could sow distrust in the NLRB's independence, they said. The new revelations about Doge's activities at the labor agency come from a whistleblower in the IT department of the NLRB who disclosed his concerns to Congress and the U.S. Office of Special Counsel in a detailed report that was then provided to NPR. Meanwhile, his attempts to raise concerns internally within the NLRB preceded someone, quote, physically taping a threatening note to his door that included sensitive personal information and overhead photos of him walking his dog that appeared to be taken with a drone, according to a cover letter attached to his disclosure filed by his attorney, Andrew Bakaj of the nonprofit Whistleblower Aid. The whistleblower's account is corroborated by internal documentation.
One more thing about that address, just where he got, and just because you know how I love facts and details. When he was being interviewed, it's important to know when he was on Rachel Maddow, because she was the first person to interview him, and you could see he was terrified. Like he was literally shaking while sitting there. And one of the things that was made very clear is where he received that THREAT taped to his door. Right? No one had that address. He had just moved there within a month and a half, 2 months. The only people that have that address are the government.
That's it.
Just to make clear. He's like, not my friend. Nobody knows where I live except the government.
The whistleblower's account is corroborated by internal documentation and was reviewed by 11 technical experts across other government agencies and the private sector. In total, NPR spoke to over 30 sources across the government, the private sector, the labor movement, cybersecurity, and law enforcement who spoke to their own concerns about how Doge and the Trump administration might be handling sensitive data and the implications for its exposure. Much of the following account comes from the whistleblower's official disclosure and interviews with NPR. Quote, I can't attest to what the end goal was or what they're doing with the data, said the whistleblower, David Baroulis, in the interview with NPR. Quote, but I can tell you that the bits of the puzzle that I can quantify are scary. This is a very bad picture we're looking into. The whistleblower story sheds further light on how Doge is operating inside federal systems and comes on the heels of testimony in more than a dozen court cases across the U.S. that reveal how Doge rapidly gained access to private financial and personal information on hundreds of millions of Americans. It's unclear how or whether Doge is protecting the privacy of that data. That sentence right there. It is unclear how or whether Doge is protecting the privacy of that data. Meanwhile, the threatening note, though its origins are unknown, is reflective of the current climate of fear and intimidation towards whistleblowers.
And again, I just want to be clear, what the data that was exfiltrated, which if you saw the graph of exfiltration and you have any business in IT, the only thing that could be happening was the complete exfiltration of all data in those servers during that time. I mean, what does it mean when the graph goes to the top of the chart? I've never seen a graph like that. It's not up and to the right. It's like one straight up line. Straight down line. Okay. But anyways, I just want to be clear. The National Labor Relations Board, when you're talking about the data that was stolen, just know any whistleblower, any person who ever said that their rights were violated, any union member who ever made a claim that said they were being abused by Amazon, not letting them organize, by Starbucks, not letting people unionize, complaints against Boeing, complaints against Tesla, who has many union labor complaints against them and many lawsuits. All of that information was taken by Elon Musk's Doge, the name of every single whistleblower to ever speak out. That's what he took. All Elon Musk has been doing that he did successfully with Doge is take all of our data, any information. He took it all. He has access to it all. He didn't save us any money. Trump's federal government is now spending more money. They never updated the budget. And I know, MAGA, you don't understand how the government works, but we are still on Nancy Pelosi's budget. Just to be clear, the entire 118th Congress, they never passed a budget. They are still passing continued resolutions to this day. We have never gotten off Nancy Pelosi's budget from the 117th Congress. Oh yeah, that's the chart. That's the exfiltration of data. What does that mean? Is that a good thing when all that data, that spike happened? Have you ever seen a chart like that of the amount of traffic being exfiltrated from servers? Yeah, let me help you if you don't understand technology. That's where every single ounce of data was stolen, right there. So good luck to any whistleblowers, anyone who ever spoke out or made a claim, a union claim about labor rights against any large corporation in this country, because they have all that data. And and it's possible that Russia does too.
Again, we can only go by what the reporting tells us. We can only go by the fact that they confirmed that there were IP addresses that were based in Russia during this particular time. We can only base our when the people that were being investigated were attempting to cover their tracks.
I use Russia IP addresses to scare people. I always have a VPN on. I have a VPN on right now. I'm in Azerbaijan. If anyone asks.
Sweet.
I am. I use VPNs layered over VPNs, depending on what I'm up to. But anyways, I wanted to say this though, because this is just a pattern, and I'm not saying I know anything for certain, but like I said, as a intelligent person who sees the world in patterns, I just want to kind of make everyone think about something that I've been thinking about. Do you guys remember during the presidential election when all of a sudden this is when Biden still had control of the federal government and intelligence agencies, right? And it was very clear that we know Russia's interfered in the US election. There were indictments leading up to it, but on the election day, there were threats being called in in particularly blue polling locations in blue counties. And the Biden administration was, or the DOJ was able to determine, and the FBI was able to determine that was Russia interfering in our elections. And I just want to draw the parallel that now Trump controls the intelligence agencies and the FBI. So how Russia's interfering or creating chaos, because that was just Russia creating chaos. Hey, if they got 5 people to stay home, 10 people to stay home, 100 people to stay home, that makes a difference. I would like to just say, I notice a parallel between these random letters that aren't going out anymore to people who are even on student visas or legal permanent residents with green cards, right? All of the letters that are going out to doctors, immigration lawyers, professors saying leave the country. That's a chaos campaign. I'm not saying it's coming from Russia, but it's very similar to me as what they were doing on election day, right? And or it could very easily be coming from the US government. But either way, that's a campaign to confuse and create chaos, right?
We've talked about this, and I'm glad you brought that up, and we can get into this more too, about how, imagine an international student whose dream was to go to college in the United States. And they're on their visa, and now they're being told they're going to be either denied entry, they're not going to be able to return, or their visa is going to be revoked, and they're going to be sent home in the middle of the semester. Why? There is no reason to do any of this. There's none. I mean, the crashing of the stock market, self-inflicted. firing members and staff at the VA so veterans can't be treated. It's all by design to hurt people. Why? To enrich themselves. Why? To make things easier for Russia. Why? We've got reporting now because of tariffs levied against Vietnam. The Vietnamese government is going to fast track development for a Trump resort in Vietnam.
I have that clip if we want to hear a Trump resort. The ways in which Vietnam, if you don't understand, when people believed that we were going to get into a trade war with China, usually the good news for Asian countries around China are that what American manufacturers immediately did was start moving factories to Vietnam and other surrounding Asian countries.
Cambodia.
So Vietnam was actually experiencing a boom. I mean, not great for the slave labor happening in those factories, but they were experiencing an economic boom from from moving factories from China, fearing a trade war, to Vietnam. Now, Vietnam has some of the highest tariff rates ever. That has to, because of the fake tariff numbers. I mean, the 10% blanket tariffs. One of the ways they're trying to negotiate to get out of them, they have now approved a Trump resort in Vietnam. They are allowing Elon Musk to use Starlink inside their country, right? And ply his shitty internet to their third world residents inside Vietnam. And there's a third one I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, I mean, that's the reality. That's how you bribe the U.S. government. It has nothing to do with what's good for the people. It has to do with bribing billionaires with their businesses making more money.
Buy your gold card.
Being robbed,
buy your
MAGA.
citizenship. Yeah, buy your citizenship, buy your gold card. So once again, for the people that claim that Trump gave up his paycheck, which we know he didn't because tax returns would tell us so, that he's not enriching himself. He never divested himself of monies gained from the Trump organization. We know that happened. Again, that's an issue with our system that we never held him accountable enough for that. I don't know why the fuck Democrats didn't do something about that because they're weak as well. But now we have. I mean, it's just blatantly obvious. There was petitions made to invest in Vietnam prior to Trump taking office. Now, in response to the tariffs, they have agreed to fast track a Trump resort, $1.8 billion investment in Vietnam. Who stands to benefit? So can MAGA, can you guys just accept the fact that your guy is just so corrupt? Right. I would
allowing Starlink to sell their shitty internet product in Vietnam be a way to get around tariffs. You tell me, MAGA.
Interesting.
You tell me if your brains work. There's only one conclusion you could come to is corruption.
We have a statement from Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is now blaming, quote, disgruntled former employees and the media amid another signal scandal. This is from Betsy Klein. A defiant defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, attacked leakers and slammed the media amid news that he used a second signal group chat to discuss classified military plans. Quote, time and time again, as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. This is what the media does. They take anonymous sources, disgruntled former employees, and they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputation. Hegseth said at the White House Easter egg roll, joined by his children as well as his wife, who is in on one of the signal chats, not going to work with me because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of war fighters. And anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees are old news. Doesn't matter, he said.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Can I say before his official statement, can I just say what Pete Hegseth, because because he's the least qualified person ever. The point is not if you're qualified. It's just if you are of low intelligence, or let me just say this, of less intelligence than Trump, because Trump wants to be the smartest. So imagine how not smart you have to be underneath Trump in the stack rank of intelligence, and that you've either covered up or been credibly accused of SA. Meanwhile, I've got to hear about DEI. Mediocre white men failing up is the theme of the Trump administration. When all of this started coming out yesterday in the early morning about Pete Hegseth, not just about the first signal chat, but about the second signal chat where Pete's like, hey, send my hairdresser war plans. Instead of just being quiet like a sane person who has intelligence would do, he started posting on X, which I don't recommend for your mental health being on there, but I am, because that's how I make my outlines for the people's receipts. He said, your agenda is illegals, I hate saying that word, trans and DEI, all of which are no longer allowed and he tried to say at DOD, but there was a space in between. So he didn't even correctly at the Department of Defense. This is after he is now, it's been confirmed that he is leaking war plans to his weird wife, who he was married to another person, was credibly accused. There's a 25-page police report that he raped a Republican woman in a hotel during a Republican conference, and then impregnated. His current wife is the woman who he was married to, his second wife, who was his Fox producer, who he impregnated in between being accused of rape and cheating on his second wife. I just want to make sure we were clear on who this woman is, who he took to NATO meetings in Belgium without a security clearance, and people were like, get this woman out of the room. That's who we're talking about. And Brian Tyler Cohen responds to me. He has like random mutterings, and he's like, the Fox host with zero qualifications for his job, who was hired solely because he said nice things about Trump on TV, is complaining about DEI again. Can I just read a few more responses?
Please,
underneath
go for it. Yeah,
Pete's
go for it.
Possible intoxicated mutterings. Pete, are you drinking right now? Again, I'm just bringing receipts. This is not me. This is exactly why they want you out. How many times does this loser have to put our men and women in uniform at risk so he could be fired? Fire this incompetent DUI hire immediately instead of DUI. Get it?
Yeah.
Apparently, Operation Security is no longer allowed at DOD either. When are you resigning? Would be great if you could do it soon. Pete is drunk again. Sir, this is a Wendy's. You are trashed right now, aren't you? Then Tim Miller, who runs, is an editor at the Bulwark, said, the Secretary of Defense's own public affairs director ran an op-ed calling for him to be fired for incompetence tonight. A few hours later, SecDef's response is shitposting in the DNC's replies like he's a midwit MAGA social media influencer after a few pops.
Listen, I mean,
the country's safe. Sleep well, MAGA. Don't worry. Another mediocre idiot is in charge of the military.
Totally true. You guys should tune in with Matt later because I'm sure he's going to go off on this as well. But this is the gaslight that we talked about before. Remember the first time when he said that there were no war plans? That was a semantic argument. We know exactly what was in it. They tried everything possible to deflect away that from the fact that it was classified information that was shared. Here we are again, right? Here we are again. And this time he's got nobody to blame but himself. It came from him, went to his wife, went to his partner, went to his hairdresser, went to his dog groomer. Everybody, you get classified information and you get classified information and you get classified information. And his response is this: a disgruntled former employee and the media are the ones that are responsible. So that is the biggest gaslight, and you're going to see that all day long. And I bring that up because they talk about anonymous. What's the line that he uses here? It says, and this is a quote, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees are old news and doesn't matter. That's funny because the entire argument against Mr. Garcia was based on a confidential informant that said he might have been in a gang. So we'll use that to violate someone's, constitutional
it's actually
rights to due
it's double
process.
hearsay. It's based on a police officer who never showed up in court to testify because it turned out he was giving confidential information to a sex worker and is no longer credible to show up in court. Said that the compromised lying police officer said that someone told him. It is double hearsay.
Right. So double hearsay with a confidential informant that they didn't want to name. We've got that as a basis for violating somebody's constitutional rights. And then over here, we actually have the receipts. We actually have the group chat that was started by Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth from his own personal phone, not a government issued phone, sharing attack plans, confidential information confirmed by members of various committees that said, yeah, this information would be considered classified. But that doesn't matter. But MAGA mouth breathers are convinced that just because there's a confidential informant, double hearsay, Chicago Bulls hat, tattoos that are not MS-13 tattoos. By the way, your picture was great. Just, that was freaking awesome. I loved it. With Pete with his shirt off and the code word.
Case closed.
Yeah, exactly. Case closed. Felice is on the job. So this is where we're at, and this is why we talk about things in terms of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda. This is a Russian tactic. This is a German tactic. These are all the things that authoritarians do. Everybody else is to blame. It's not us. Even though we did it, we didn't do it. Even though we're the ones that are incompetent, it's women's fault. Or it's members of LGBTQ+, or it's brown-skinned people's fault, or it's the elderly. It's everybody else's fault. It's not us. Listen, we realize that we're a group of mediocre white men who reached our peak in high school or middle school, but it's not us. We didn't do it. It's somebody else. It's their fault. They did it.
And I want to say this, Maggot, and this is not sarcasm now. This is me being genuine. I know it feels like you're being discriminated against and like someone's taking something from you. They are. You're being robbed. It's just not the brown and black people who are robbing you. You think you're losing market share because so many brown people are popping up? That's not what's happening. We are all being robbed by the same people. It is billionaires. It is who you continue to vote for. And I know that because math, statistical analysis, and I'm saying this to help you. You can download an AI app. You don't even have to be able to do math to now do your own statistical analysis. Since 1980, since you heard of trickle down economics, hey, don't tax billionaires and corporations and it will trickle down. Nothing has trickled down. Only transfers of wealth to the top of the economy. If it feels like something bad is happening to you, it is. You're just wrong about who's doing it.
Yeah, all we are asking, like if you truly believe that incompetence exists, if you truly believe that you don't want incompetence in government, then you need to be coming out in your safe spaces today and say Pete Higson should resign or get fired. Because it's the second time now that information, if you truly care about the safety and security of not only our country, but men and women who serve our country, if you truly care about their safety, then you've got to say, this guy's obviously incompetent and I want him fired. That is all we are asking for. Just be objective. Look at the information, take off the tinfoil, watch the people's receipts Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What are the dates of your show?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern.
Yes, watch the people's receipts and learn something, and then be like, okay, I will still suck the teat of the orange guy, but we got to get rid of Pete Hegseth because he's just incompetent. Katie, thanks for being here. You're teacupping. What's on your mind? I don't think Katie's there. Okay. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Let's see if we can get to 300K, and let's see if we can get.
We should be at 300K. We can do it. Let's get to 300K. 4 facts. He's amazing.
Thank you, friend. Kamala Yomamala, how are you today? Hello, Kamala Yomamala, are you there? Hello. Going once. Going twice. Okay. All right. I want to kind of just pivot back to a couple other things real quick. There's this sound from Dr. Oz. By the way, I'm surprised that it took that long for his confirmation. I thought that would already been done, and it sort of snuck through. But the sound that ridiculous Oval Office presser where someone passed out, I think it was a member of his family, fainted. What he had to say about, well, you can just listen.
Dr. Oz is now in charge of Medicaid, if people don't know, right? Like if you're unsure what Dr. Oz is in charge of, he's now in charge of the Office of Medicaid, right? And Medicare? Exactly. So this is what Dr. Oz had to say.
Patriotic duty. I'll say it again, the patriotic duty of all Americans to take care of themselves, because it's important for serving in the military, but it's also important because healthy people don't consume healthcare resources. The best way to reduce drug spending is to use less drugs because you don't need them because you're healthy. And it feels a lot better as well.
Okay. So just be healthy. Okay. I tell you what.
Do blame Oprah for this. Oprah, you need to use your fortune and you need to do something about this. And Dr. Phil while you're at it. This is all, I'm sorry, Oprah. This is your fault.
Indeed. She platformed these people. So his response to various epidemics in our country, whether it be opioid epidemics or diabetes or whatever it might be, obesity, all these things are real problems that we have in our country, is just your patriotic duty is to just be healthy. I don't know, Dr. Oz. Maybe you could be a voice in the president's ear to say, we should really be talking about universal health care. We should really be talking about a system that does give access to our citizens to actually be more healthy. Dr. Oz, a guy who's peddled miracle cures, snake oil salesman.
Someone said he wasn't always like this. He was always like this. If you don't know,
like this.
He had to admit under oath during his confirmation hearing. That's one of the things they were peppering him on. All the lies when he worked for Oprah, when he did the Dr. Oz show. That's one of the things they were like, you claimed that this was a magical cure for this. You said this. And he was like, oh yeah, sorry. I don't know why I did that. Like he was always like this.
Always. And again, his response to this is to not talk about how our system, how Big Pharma, who's been funding him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. His response is, well, it's on you. If you're unhealthy, you're not patriotic. Doesn't matter if you have an illness. Doesn't matter if you're living below the poverty line and all you can afford is unhealthy food. That doesn't matter. No. Just be healthy. If you can't be healthy, then you're not a patriot.
Make America healthy again. And yeah, that healthcare plan, they're going, I mean, part of this man's now in charge of Medicaid and Medicare, which they're going to try to dismantle and rob, right? Huge cuts to Medicaid are coming. This is the man who will then enact them, right? Underneath RFK Jr. There's a Washington Post exclusive that came out about the extreme cuts to health and human services. It's terrifying what's about to happen. And Trump's healthcare plan is coming in 2 weeks, you guys. Don't worry. Trump's healthcare plan's coming.
2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. I want to just take
of a plan.
Exactly. Concepts of the outline of a sketch of a healthcare plan is coming in 2 weeks. I do want to take this moment today. For those of you who do not know, in Massachusetts and in Maine, this is Patriots Day. So it's the running of the Boston Marathon. They do this today is the running of the Boston Marathon. They also play a baseball game at Fenway Park. It's the only baseball game that is played before noon every single year. It also marks this year, actually April the 18th, marks the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. So that's it's kind of a historical day for those of you who don't know. And just as a reminder, one of the reasons that tea was thrown overboard during the Boston Tea Party was because of tariffs. Just want you to know that, MAGA. 10,000 cases of tea as patriots, true patriots, disguise themselves as Mohawk Indians at the time.
Pay the tariffs.
Didn't want to pay the tariff.
And also, if you don't understand this, I believe it was King George. Oh God, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think the third, maybe?
It's King George.
King George the third, one of the King Georges who was, and just be clear that what was happening was exactly what Trump is doing now with CCOP, right? Understand that America, Australia, these were penal colonies. People were taken in the dead of night without due process, taken from their families, put on ships because there weren't planes. Are you getting the parallel? And they were floated on over to penal colonies. That's why there's a wine that's very popular in Australia called 19 Crimes, because there were 19 crimes that you wouldn't receive due process. You would be put on it, that they would just point at you and say, you did this. You would be chained on a ship in the hold, and you would be floated to America or floated to Australia to a penal colony, and you could start a new life and help them settle and help them start, and you could start a new life there. Or that's why, like if you don't know, Pennsylvania was formed by William Penn, who was a Quaker, because if you were there were groups of people who were going to be disappeared one by one, and they just decided, well, we'll get our own boats and go before you disappear us under religious persecution. So that's why a lot of the 13 colonies are related to religious groups who were like, hey, we can all be burned at the stake or persecuted one by one, or we can disappear. Or it was just boats of prisoners being dropped off.
There is a really great series.
No due process.
No due process. There's a really great series on YouTube. It's called Oversimplified. They oversimplify depression, oversimplify the Revolutionary War, oversimplify the Civil War. It's great. It's in like 15-minute little segments. It's really cool if you want to break it down. If you don't have a lot of patience for long documentary style productions, but this is just a little. This is how Boston Tea Party 2.0, how Trump's tariff tantrum betrays American roots. 251 years ago, American patriots in Boston famously protested British taxes and tariffs by throwing a shipment of tea into the harbor. This act of rebellion would eventually lead to the American Revolution and has been immortalized in elementary school history lessons. The taxes being disputed, import duties, otherwise known as, say it with me, Felice, tariffs. Tariffs were enough to spark the birth of our nation, an event MAGAs hold dear as they brandish 1776 flags at Trump rallies. Yet the same people who constantly revere the wisdom and heroism of our founding fathers are now applauding the implementation of the same taxes that they had rebelled against. The iconic slogan, "No taxation without representation," has been used by the right for decades. It seems MAGAs find the phrase exclusive to the taxes coming out of their paychecks and not those that will drive inflation, not the taxes inspired by the phrase to begin with. Hypocrisy in the Republican Party is hardly new. The fact that their base doesn't care about their hypocrisy isn't new either. But at what point do we stop letting them claim the title of patriots? MAGAs have stormed the U.S. Capitol. Trump has refused to protect and defend the Constitution. SCOTUS has granted monarch-esque immunity to the office of the presidency. And now the implementation of tariffs that will devastate the cost of living in the United States. How many times will we let them spit on the ideas of our founding fathers before enough is enough? Our founding fathers would be appalled. They would be ripping "Don't Tread on Me" flags out of the hands of the MAGAs and asking them, what the fuck is wrong with you? And with any luck, some red hats would be getting thrown in Boston Harbor along with the tea.
Yeah, education has failed, MAGA. They can't read. But that is a fact. And let me help you. The tariffs, right? Those weren't passed by even Congress, which would be what we'd call representation, right?
Correct.
The direct representation you sent to Congress. That's why Trump continues to declare national emergencies. This is a king claiming powers he shouldn't have and taxing us without representation, without our congressional representation approving it. It is exactly why you guys carry around your pocket constitutions and say you're not paying taxes. But for this is how I know none of you can read.
I just think it's really, let's use this as a history lesson. 1776, those of you who have the flags and or the T-shirts or Trump on a pterodactyl with a 1776 banner or whatever it is, calls yourself patriots. If you knew the origins of our nation, and if you knew it was based on no taxation without representation, and we were being our tea, because don't forget, colonists were British, they loved them some tea, massive tariffs, taxes that we paid as colonists, that was the start of the Revolutionary War. That's how the whole thing got started. So if we were to use logic, maybe that's not a good idea. If we were to use words, and we can understand that we have history. Make them small, Steve. Make them small. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep them under 3 syllables. The history of the birth of our nation was rooted in rebellion by the colonists against tyranny from the monarch, in particular, taxes and tariffs on tea, along with other things. That's how our nation started. And then we saw tariffs come around again in the 1920s, which made the Great Depression worse. Isolationism and protectionist policies, America first, led to the rise of the fucking Reich in Germany. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
And Smoot and Hawley were the people, that enacted the tariffs that basically hastened the Great Depression. And I just want you to know that those tariffs back then don't even compare to what Trump has done now. These are almost twice as bad.
Close. Stop the fear mongering. DCM, can you come up and talk to us, please?
Yeah, stop facts and data. That's what he means. Oh, please, historical researcher and people that have facts, don't say the truth. My cognitive dissonance can barely handle it. My brain is hurting when someone forces me to listen to facts. Not one word we have said is not factual that we can't back up with primary sources. You are just feeling awkward and uncomfortable because you have been duped.
Yeah, I mean, DCM, if you really, I mean, I sent you an invite. If you want to come up and tell us that we're fear-mongering, I just would like to know what it's based on. Like, if you don't believe what I just said and what Felice and I are talking about, then come in and refute it. That's kind of how conversations work. I don't understand why you're afraid to do
Bring
that.
your primary sources.
Yeah, what's the fear-mongering? Do you not believe that is the origin of how our nation was born? Do you think that the Patriots in the Boston Harbor were woke and it was just DEI and we can't believe it? It's fake news. Like, what's the issue? You don't think that there's a historical comparison? You don't think that the isolationist and protectionist policies of the 1920s led to the rise of the Reich in Germany? Okay, well then come up here.
Agatha still thinks
with
Thanksgiving was the Pilgrims and the Indigenous sitting down to a nice meal together.
Right. Right.
Let me help you. Factually, primary sources tell us that the Pilgrims were in fact eating the indigenous folks.
Yeah, that's correct. So again, DCM, like maybe you could be the voice of reason for MAGA today. If you can prove me wrong, I talk about this all the time. If I'm not up here, would you let me rephrase it, DCM. Would you rather win the argument based on your feelings, or would you rather have the correct information? Because I would rather have the correct information personally. I don't care about winning. I just want to be accurate and correct. We have a mission here. You know, we pride ourselves. We think about how hard Felice works. I put in a lot of effort for this. We pride ourselves in trying to share information, fact-based information. We have opinions on things. Sure, we all do. But back it up with facts. If you don't know how your country that you claim to be so proud of give you, okay, you're at work, DCM. Well, you're at work. You can.
They always are. They always are.
Yeah. So when you're done, please request and we'll save you a seat. Okay. All right, everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. We're at 310K. We should easily be able to hit 500 today. Don't forget about the gifting goal. Please don't forget about joining our team. And just, again, Felice's pay apps are here along with mine. And also, if you would please consider subscribing to Facts HQ. While you're over there, you can pick yourselves up some merch, including this new one. I read the news today. Oh, boy. We have the fuck wheel. We have a whole bunch of shit. So please consider doing that. And if we can get to 150 subscribers on Facts HQ, we'll do a subscriber-only event, and any and all subscribers then will be entered into a contest to win their choice of 2 merch items and or a comparable charitable donation that I will pay on your behalf to whatever charity you choose. We did this once before. Money went to the Trevor Project. It was really cool. So thank you.
I'm at work typing lies in the chats of lives, typing uneducated, ignorant lies in the chats at lives. But when I'm asked to defend my beliefs, all of a sudden I'm too busy at work. But I'm at work not doing any work and listening to lives on TikTok. It all makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you can miss your assistant manager training seminar and then go back to it at some point. But hi, Moth, how are you?
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Felice. Felice, you look amazing today. I just wanted to
Thank
put
you
that
so
up.
much. It's the melanin.
Love it.
And warm weather.
What's that like? My Nebraska weather is all over the place. So it's warm, and then it's freezing, and then it's warm again. So I just, I was coming up here to do what you just did. You just did my whole gig, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Well, there's other things we can. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about it. It had been a minute, but I always appreciate you. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Well, originally I was going to come up here and say that we should easily be at 300K, and they surpassed that. So then I was going to say, I mean, we should, let's get that up to 350 and then up to 400. Like, let's just keep it going. But other than that, no, I don't have anything. You took the words right out of my virtual mouth.
Well, I appreciate you being here as always, friend. Thank you as always, Moth. And again, hearts in the chat for mods everywhere. We have our own Moth as a mod, so we're very fortunate. But thank you, friend, for being here. I appreciate you.
I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow is a super awesome, important day. In case
yes, it is indeed. Indeed, it is.
I'm gonna be expecting a happy birthday song.
Don't worry, we got you. Actually, well, we can do this instead. Hold on. More of that tomorrow for you, just for you, friend. I appreciate you very much. Happy early birthday. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So I want to play this sound because, again, whenever we hear Trump talking about things he doesn't know, instead of just trying to navigate through the conversation and avoiding some difficult answers to easy questions, it's just hatred that comes out of his voice. So listen to this sound. This will freak you out.
Anybody in history, I think you probably know that. I hope you.
He's complaining about how he was targeted more than anybody in history. That he, a privileged white man born on third base, given $400 million by his daddy, is the most targeted person in history.
Targeted more than anybody in history. I think you probably know that. I hope you admit it, but you might not. But I was targeted more than anybody in history. But it was interesting because one pastor told me, and another one heard, oh, me too, and me too, me too, me too. All of a sudden they were all, and one of them spent all of his money, everything he had on lawyers for 3 years. He said it took place almost immediately after the election, when Biden came in, unfortunately for the country, sadly for the country. So when you ask me that question, I immediately say, let's switch it around to tell you what happened last night. And not only that, we're also finding that many people just having to do with Trump support have gone through hell. And they've used the IRS for purposes of something that's very illegal for them to have to do.
What are you trying to
It's a very illegal, it's a very, very illegal thing to do what they did. And I think it's such a shame.
So he's implying that Trump supporters, Biden voters are being targeted by the IRS. That's his claim. And again, the victim mindset that he it's effective because when he says, listen, if they can come after me, they can come after you, which is a German propaganda tactic that I am your redeemer. I'm the one that is standing between you and the enemy of the state, so to speak. Sitting there in the Oval Office, addressing the press, which he loves to do, be surrounded by his sycophants, which he loves to have because he needs to feed his narcissistic ego, literally telling the American public and the world who's watching that if you voted for me, you are under threat to the IRS. So what does that do? Think about this from an emotional amygdala response perspective when you're talking about a loyal, devoted Trump voter. They're going to sit there and they're going to believe the words of the president. They're going to believe him to say, shit, I voted, which means if I don't get a tax break, that's because I've been targeted by the IRS. So the reason that he's raising taxes on me is to protect me. This is how warped their fucking minds have become. It's wild. It's wild.
I just want to draw a parallel because I think if I have to give credit, because sometimes Mag always says to me, can you say one good thing about Trump? No, I mean, I don't know if it's good. I can say factual information of things I observe that he is doing. And I want to be very clear because I do see us all, a lot of people on the left fall into this trap. Like I'll be doing a live and people come in and they're like, oh my God, see what Trump just said. And it's like, I want you to know that what Trump is good at is producing a reality show, right? That's really what he's always been good at, right? Is reality TV, which is not real. It's produced, right? It's produced TV with a narrative. Every single day from the White House, Trump is producing a show. It starts on Fox and Friends in the morning. Then it goes to Caroline Leavitt. Then it goes to Trump in the White House. He usually has some leader and he's producing a reality show, right? His version of reality, which 90% of it are verifiable lies. It is not true. So like Jim Acosta, Don Lemon and other journalists they were at some conference and I heard, they were saying, turn the TV off. Like don't watch Trump's delusional version of reality. It is not real. Trump is doing Trump has very few skills, right? One is producing a TV show. That is what he's doing 24 hours a day. He's producing his version of reality, which are verifiable lies.
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really, really good point because as we know historically, propaganda is a massive tactic of authoritarian regimes. Think about what happens in North Korea. Think about what happens in Russia. Think about what happened in Nazi Germany, Joseph Goebbels. And then don't forget, just recently we had a Republican member of the Congress citing Joseph Goebbels during a hearing, which is just amazing. It is a tactic. It is an absolute tactic. It's a by-the-book tactic that the authoritarians and dictators use. It's one thing to have biases on news, because we've talked about this many, many times from a media literacy perspective. All news is biased, but bias doesn't mean it's inaccurate. Bias doesn't mean it's wrong. It just has an opinion that might lean one direction or another. Now, people want to go after NBC, but NBC from a traditional mainstream media perspective is one of the most accurate when in their reporting. Doesn't mean that they don't have biases, but you can't compare what you get from Fox or from OAN or from Newsmax to anything that exists in the reality sphere. So what we're talking about here is just this propaganda that he uses, and he uses these tactics like it's Pete Hegseth coming out today saying it's a disgruntled former employee. It's not me. It's the fake news. It's them. It's this horrible journalist who got sucked into the group chat. It's not us. It's them. Everything becomes othering. Again, this is a traditional tactic of authoritarian regimes, and we've seen it.
This is a signal chat created by Pete Hegseth. So a disgruntled former employee made, and he added those employees to the group chat that he created. It's hilarious. Like you're saying someone pretending to be you that could only be you from your personal phone that has been verified, created a signal chat, and then you added the people you fired. Do that, chat. Make it make sense, Pete. None of that makes any sense if you have the facts. Yeah, this is all just misdirection and lies. But I say this all the time, whether information comes from Newsmax or it comes from, PBS, if it's factual, it's factual, right? It's on all of us then. The media is what we call in research a secondary source. Then you have to verify the information using primary sources, right? Then you look for court documents, congressional records, things of that nature that are considered primary sources. It doesn't matter where the information comes from. Then you look to verify it.
You mean there's no such thing as alternative facts, Felice?
No, it's so strange.
Okay. Moonbow, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good.
What's on your mind?
Well, what really is on my mind is how you and Felice, like, the way that you have to wade through all of the information and all of, like, you have to sit down and watch all the Trump, rallies and videos and listen to him all day long and everything going on. Like, you remind me of, like, first responders of, like... No, like,
this is killing me.
Because, it's mind-numbing. I can't do it. I try. And then I come to you guys to listen to, what you guys have to say about it, because I can't do it. I can't listen to him. I can't listen to half of those men speak. Well, and Caroline, I guess. It hurts my brain. You guys are first responders.
I appreciate you saying that. We're out here doing the work. I mean, I've learned so much from Felice. I've had the privilege of seeing Felice's outlines, and I'm like, holy shit! I thought I was on top of stuff, but I appreciate you saying that, Moon. Thank you very much.
Oh, she's amazing. And just by the way, Felice, I went by a different. This is like my 4th or 5th account, but I've been following you since you first started with Jay way back when.
Awesome. I followed you. It's very nice to meet you. And thanks for noticing that I'm slowly dying. It is true. I once read a study. This is, me. I'm always reading psychological studies. I read a study that if you're a delivery driver in New York City who has to drive around in Manhattan, that you experience the stress of astronauts leaving the Earth's atmosphere. That is how stressful it is to navigate traffic in New York City. And I would say, yeah, that's what it's like for creators on the internet. If you don't believe that it hurts your mental health, especially as a woman, right? And the stress, the death threats, what comes with doing what we do. Yeah, it's extreme amounts of stress that are exerted on you all the time. But I say this, I was raised by someone just like Trump, but actually intelligent. I was bred to do what I'm doing now.
I see that too. Like, well, not about like my parents, but other people. Like, yeah, I know people like Trump, except for they were actually smart. And like when they spoke, they were actually eloquent, and like they weren't just rambling about the dumbest crap. So
the truth is, it won't listen. No one will come. No one is going to save us. Not Congress, not anyone. It has to come. Whoever has the guts, whoever was raised by a narcissist, whoever can see very clearly what we're dealing with. You have a very unique skill set that you always wondered, why did I have to suffer through this for such a time as now? You have a unique skill set that people do not understand. People still believe, the majority of people in this country, that he's just going to stop. He will never stop. Malignant narcissists do not stop. Someone has to stop them.
The crazy part is he's so old, and it's like, what is your like trajectory? Like, what are you?
You have to understand the psychology. They do not see it that way. Like,
no, they don't. They're going to cause as much chaos as they can before they can end it. Like,
God doesn't die, and God doesn't create chaos. Everything God does is perfect. That is the logic. You have to understand, this is somebody living in a house of mirrors who believes they are God. God makes no mistakes. Everyone's lucky to have sex with God. That is how narcissists operate. There are no mistakes. There is no chaos. Everything God does is right.
Same thing with the cult. Yeah. Everything you're lucky if you're chosen by the cult leader.
I want to say,
Thank
love
you.
Mr. Mittens. I have my kitten is her name. So
my kitty's name. His name's Mr. Mittens. That's so awesome that you know. Cats, get a cat.
Mittens, I'm like, kitten, get over here.
Moonbell, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you jumping in today. Thanks so much. Have a good day,
guys.
You got it. See you later.
Love ya.
You too.
You too. And thanks for knowing my cat's name. This
is an interesting quote. This is a quote from John Harwood. What the Republican Party has become: friend to angry white guys, authoritarian governments, rich people trying to avoid taxes, and Nazi sympathizers. Enemy of science, education, religious charity, affordable health care, rule of law, and the defense of democracy. I don't think I would challenge anything that was just said there.
I don't know if I'm going to get to it on the people's receipts, but guess what I have a thread of? The old Protect White People rally that was going on in Texas this weekend. They have a bus. They have a wrapped bus. It's former J6ers that have been pardoned, like Jake Lang, going around in a bus, terrorizing brown and black people at the Protect White People rallies.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because again, white people are so oppressed, such victims. Okay, so as we're again, we're still talking about taking out the trash under the cover of darkness, and all these things are. I think it's really important now. Hopefully, you guys can learn to sort of pay attention to things that don't get a lot of press. If you're looking at stories that come out over the weekend, obviously we know J.D. Vance's visit with the Pope, and then the Pope just passed away. So there's
have a meeting with Couch Boy. He'll talk you to death.
Exactly. Then we've already talked about the reporting of inspectors generals being fired at midnight. We know about the press office being cleared out on a Friday night at the Pentagon. We know about all these other things, the Supreme Court ruling that came down, Justice Alito's dissent, which was crazy but not unexpected, changes to invocation of the Alien Enemies Act that also happened on a Friday night, references to it. Watch some of the executive orders when they come out. I say these things because I tend to frequent some right-wing lives, not as much as I used to because it's not good for my mental health, but I go there so you don't have to. You're welcome. There was a creator who was talking about this LAB lab leak story that was up on whitehouse.gov. And the reason I bring that up because this is how easy it is for everybody to fall victim to propaganda, cognitive dissonance, and confirmation bias. If you are using, this includes people on the left, if you're using whitehouse.gov as your primary source, that can be really problematic. And the challenge that we get when we try to help people navigate through this is that now you're saying I can't trust a government website. Well, it's really no different than the chairman of the House Oversight Committee putting out something on their .gov website. It doesn't mean it's the truth. It is literally, it is the voice of the chairman, James Comer or Jim Jordan or whomever it might be. It's the voice of the White House press office on a whitehouse.gov. So you can go to whitehouse.gov and you can read about this lab leak story. And of course, the right has now jumped on it saying, see, we told you. We told you. Fauci's corrupt. We told you. We told you. Here it is. You guys only talk about your .gov websites. So just, again, for everybody, please just be careful when you're navigating through information. Look for primary sources. Go to court records. Go to the congressional record as opposed to a narrative delivered by a chairman or chairperson of a committee. Go to the actual source. Okay? Shouldn't be that hard. All right.
And I would say, and I'll find the PDF and I'll send it out in the Discord, but I have, like, let's say that it is coming from the chair of a judiciary committee, like Jamie Raskin, who's now the ranking member, right? He runs the Democratic chair. When he puts out PDFs and information, what he does as a constitutional lawyer is links to secondary and primary sources, because that's what I'm saying. If someone's giving you information and saying, hey, I'm going to debunk a bunch of lies coming from the conservatives, it's not him saying his feelings. It's him saying, here are all the links to the sources where I got this information that you can link back to, right? I mean, that's what you want to see. Like I said, trust but verify, right? And getting a narrative, a story is not correct. And I have just what you're saying. I can debunk any stories about Fauci. He has never, ever told a lie under oath. And there are primary sources that prove that. If you have a misunderstanding of medical information or gain of function research or what words mean when doctors speak, which MAGA does, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, the insider trader, but that doesn't mean that Dr. Fauci has ever told a lie under oath.
That's exactly right. That's so. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Again, the chairpersons of these committees, whether you're a Democrat or an independent or Republican, do have the administrative access to the various agencies and or subcommittees and or committees' social accounts. So you're getting their narrative. What Jamie Raskin does and others that are also on these committees, and again, Jamie Raskin is the ranking member, the minority ranking member, he chooses to use facts and evidence. So just, again, be very, very careful. All right, I want to play this sound because as we're getting more and more reaction to tariffs globally, from a lot of countries saying that I can't depend on the United States anymore. China's GDP, the United States consumers are responsible. I think, and don't hold me, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong about this. I think it's about 15% of China's GDP is a direct result of American consumers. So it's a pretty significant investment. China has said, we don't care. We'll find it elsewhere. So what you're starting to see is more high donor Republicans, especially those in corporate America, are realizing what we have now gotten ourselves into because of his lack of understanding of basic economics. So here's a little bit of sound, and we can talk about this on their side.
You're about to see, I believe, some very high-profile business leaders and Republicans come out in the next week or two and say, this is just bad. I have a lot of faith in America over the medium and the long term. We get it wrong in the short term a lot, but over the medium and long term, we demonstrate tremendous generosity and leadership. And I think we're at a point where people realizing that, okay, a guy with the wrong tattoo who gets basically rounded up, a university or the cultural elite that are targeted under bullshit narratives of anti-Semitism, weaponizing the DOJ against your political enemies. I think the school is about to rise up against the bullies.
Although, Scott, in the short term, the damage is...
There's been uncalculable economic and moral damage here, and loss of brand equity and a loss of moral authority. I'm not in any way assuming this will repair everything, but I think you're going to see in the next 1 or 2 weeks a cadre of Fortune 500 CEOs, Republicans, business leaders stand up and say, okay, enough already. While you all claim he's playing 4D chess, at this point, we're worried he's going to start eating the pieces.
We'll see. From your mouth,
You're
I don't
skeptical.
know. I think it'll take longer than you think. It'll be more damaging. I think he will have damaged and wrecked people's lives in the process.
I think it's important, like we've been talking about. It's only going to take one. So if you have a prominent Republican donor and or a prominent loyalist in the Republican Party who is the one that says, okay, enough's enough, then that will open the dam. So it's almost like everybody's looking at everyone else, whether it be members of Congress who would support articles of impeachment, whether it be members of the donor class, those deep-pocketed individuals who've been funding campaigns, likely connected to the Heritage Foundation and other right-wing conservative groups. It's only going to take a couple. because they all know that they've got to, especially elected members of Congress who are facing re-election, they got to go back to their districts and try to sell this shit. Yeehaw! Thank you very much. We've already seen what's happened when they go out. We've already seen people like MTG not even willing to take questions from her constituents, want to script the whole thing. So I think I don't know based on his timeline if it's going to be within the next couple of weeks, but I think the more and more we see this kind of damage that's being done, and when we see inflation about to spike in April, because it's going to go up again, it's obvious. We've already seen it. We've already seen the reaction from industries. We've seen reactions from the housing industry. We've seen reaction from the tech sector. We've seen reactions from the auto industry. We know that this is going to harm people. The Dow's down another 600 points today, down to like 38,000. It's lost nearly 8,000 points since Inauguration Day. So thoughts on that, Felice?
Yeah. As you mean as far as what you started with or on the markets? No, of course the markets are going to continue to plummet, the transfers of wealth. I mean, and this, I know, MAGA, you don't understand how the United States economy works, let alone the world economy. But I could tell you that, I mean, we are not talking, and let me help you, the short-term pain for long-term gain argument is actually, I mean, it's almost more idiotic than even the opposite argument, just saying like, hey, this is just like, we are doing more damage. I just want you to understand. And actually, I was playing a clip showing the map of trading partners 10 years ago that the US had. And literally now today, our only trading bloc was essentially the Americas. That was our primary and only trading bloc. China has taken over the rest of the world. I talk about this all the time. Trump, well, who I don't believe plays chess because he seems to have no knowledge of strategy and forward thinking, but he always talks about how this is 4D chess. This is 4D chess. Now, China plays a different game. It's older than chess. And if you don't know what it is, it's called Go. And the object, it's a strategic game, but it's a very different, right? Chess is about war. It's about taking the queen or whatever. That's war. And that's what America has always played, these war games, building up our military. China has played a very different game, which is now looking much more successful, which is take up space. When you win a game of Go in strategy, it's because you've taken up so much space that no one else can make any more moves. And that's what China has done. If you've ever lived outside the country, which MAGA, we know you barely have passports. I looked at the statistics. You've been to Cancun once. And that's pretty much it. But China owns more of the world than any other country. China owns more resources around the world. China owns the majority of the factories around the world. And China has taken up and commandeered all of our trading partners.
Yeah, well, and then it's just gets worse. We've discussed this before about soft power. When you're talking about humanitarian aid across the world, which is why USAID is so impactful. Without USAID, without the presence of American flags from a patriotic perspective or backed up by the U.S. military, China's been waiting for that to happen. They have literally been standing by just waiting for it to happen. And here it is. I mean, China is not going to lose this trade war. They are not going to lose. The United States consumers will. They're not going to lose. China's like, look, we don't need you. You need us. We don't need you. You need us because Americans are entitled consumers. They expect to have goods at their disposal as cheaply as possible. They do not want to wait. They don't want to pay more. They'll complain to say about America first, but given the opportunity, the overwhelming majority of Americans will buy cheaper. We know it. We are consumers. We are gluttons. And China's like, okay, you want to raise more tariffs on us? We'll raise them on you. So my point about whether or not we will see either prominent Republican and or prominent corporatist who will finally say enough's enough and then start the ball rolling towards impeachment. Do you think that's something we might see?
Who do you think it will be?
I don't know. I'm just wondering because I mean,
no, I know.
I think
listen, I want to believe that, and I think, and this is and I say this all the time. Like I'm a native born Phoenician. Like I was born in Arizona. I'm not a transplant, and it's a swing state, right? And so yes, I put pressure not just on the district I currently live in, my representative, but on everyone because I say this all the time. I didn't have a stable environment. We moved every month. I've lived in at least 20, I've lived in so many different congressional districts. And so this is why we have to put pressure on everyone in Congress in our states, right? Like you have to remind them, if you don't grow a spine, if you don't speak out, if you continue along the path you're going, you will be gone. I mean, that's assuming we have free and fair elections. But yes, like every single person that backs this man, apathy is what fueled 1930s Germany. Silence.
Correct.
Saying,
Correct.
hey, I was just following orders, like Matt says all the time. I was just following orders was not a legal defense at the Nuremberg trials. I was just going along to get along. I was scared, so I was silent. None of these are defenses. Either I would hope one of them would grow a spine and say something. I would hope.
Yeah. My thought was this, because just recently, don't forget, we have JD Vance being appointed the tariff czar. I'm not sure if it's an official title, but Trump had made it very, very clear that JD Vance is now the one responsible, who's on point for managing the tariffs. And that is by design from Trump, because he is not going to take any responsibility.
So he's like, oh, I don't have anything to do with it.
Got nothing to do with it. So you point to JD. So then JD becomes the scapegoat. So JD Vance is now in this position that he's got political aspirations for the future. The assumption is that he'll be the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party in 2028. Right? That's the plan. So now, because Trump does not give a flying fuck about anybody but himself, which is part of the reason he's been talking about violating the 22nd Amendment as running for a third term, because if he knows if he doesn't do that, then other Republicans potentially in the field will take away some of his spotlight, and he doesn't want that to happen. So with JD Vance being someone who's now going to be under pressure for the tariffs being successful, and they won't be, then maybe JD is someone who steps out a little bit and says, it's not going to come from him, but a prominent Republican. It would only take one. It would really only take one for somebody to say, okay, I support articles of impeachment. And then he gets impeached in the House for the third time. And then you get any courageous members of the Senate to say, we can get rid of this shit right now. We can get rid of the chaos. We still believe in the things that he wants to do. We still believe in immigration reform, and we still believe in taxes, tax breaks for the richest. But this guy is a fucking idiot, and we have got to get him out of here. I don't know. I'm with you. I'm a realist. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's what it would take.
I agree. No, I totally agree with you. I just don't think they'll do it before the midterms. Like, I think our focus needs to be, it's twofold, because I just want to address this. I don't know if you saw this, but Gavin Newsom is infuriating me day after day. Gavin Newsom went ahead into the press and decided to say that we're all distracted by caring about brown people being disappeared, when the real issue is that we're all going to be robbed in Trump's big, beautiful bill or whatever. And I just want to say, like, that is the privilege of a very, very rich white man. Who can use money, because again, the society that Trump is forming is very clear. If you have millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, Gavin Newsom does. He's very wealthy, right? If you have millions and millions and millions of dollars, you will never be in trouble. You will never be deported. All it takes is a little bribe. You're not a criminal anymore. Oh, your business is in trouble? Just a little bribe. Your business isn't in trouble anymore, right? We're now ordering society by class. And it is a complete sign of privilege to say something so ignorant. Let me just be clear again for anyone who doesn't understand the Constitution. Looking at you, MAGA. If anyone whose feet are on U.S. soil, if their due process is denied, it is eroding our own due process. The only thing anyone should be fighting for in this country is the right to due process, which the American court system is broken. I don't have much faith in it anyways. Don't get me wrong. Due process in this country isn't great. But what we're saying is Trump can point at any person and say, you're a criminal. I don't need to give a justification. I just feel like that's true. And then you will be removed from this country, put in a prison, in a concentration camp, never to be heard from again. I don't know what a bigger issue is to fight against. And in addition, while that is happening, Trump is robbing us. Trump has been robbing us. Billionaires, rich people have been robbing us since 1980. That has always been true. And Gavin Newsom is someone that seems to have accumulated a lot of wealth.
A lot of wealth. Well said. Stargazer, how are you today? Stargazer, are you there? Going once? Going twice? I guess not. Okay, there is a post on True Social as we're talking about more reaction to the economic reaction, and Jerome Powell coming out and saying, listen, this is going to get a lot worse than people are saying. So and this is from Trump. Preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many, which means nobody. With energy costs way down, they're not. Food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, they're not. And most other things trending down, wrong again. There is virtually no inflation. Okay? So remember we talked about the gaslight.
The exact opposite is true.
Exactly. The exact opposite. Remember how we talk about how, sadly, I really know how his brain works. I spent a lot of time processing it, which is not good. I need more mental health help for that, more sunlight or whatever. So when he says things like this, he means the exact opposite. So he says preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. They're being called for by no one. No one who understands basic economics. They're being called for by him in hopes that his simple-minded, smooth-brained followers will agree, although they don't know what it means. With energy costs way down, they're not. Food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, they're not. Well, they were at 69%. I think they're down to being up 58%. So sure, they're down, but they're still up 60%. And most other things trending down, there is virtually no inflation. Okay. With these costs trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can almost be no inflation, but there can be slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period, when he lowered it in order to help Sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that work out? What the fuck did he just say?
Yeah, I mean, Trump's a pathological liar and an idiot. And I've always said it's probably a combination of both, right? And I just want to understand, like, what Trump posting that was a reaction, but because MAGA doesn't understand the world economy or what's going on, they probably have no idea why Trump was saying that, because Jerome Powell was speaking at a conference and talking about the state of the U.S. economy. And I'll say this again, MAGA, if you want to say that, if you believe Trump's lie that he's just, this is Biden's fault and that's why this is all happening, that's a complete lie. Trump inherited a bull market. Trump inherited an economy that was expected to expand. Interest rates were expected to be reset and to go down 3 more times this year after when the first time they lowered interest rates. That had to do with our recovery, the best in the G7 from the pandemic. The reason interest rates were lowered once while Biden was still in office was because we had done everything we needed to do. We suffered through hard times and high interest rates to get the economy back in order, to get inflation under control so that interest rates could be lowered. If you don't understand what we mean when interest rates are lowered, it means that borrowing money becomes cheaper. Right? So rich people can borrow money. This is the idea of trickle down economics. It's not real. And then they would borrow money. They would create businesses, which would fuel the economy. And then some of that would trickle down to us, which it doesn't. But when interest rates are lower, money is cheaper to borrow. So people can start businesses, buy homes, get cheaper mortgages, all of those things. Right? But Trump intentionally, and understand this, ballistic podiatry, none of this had to happen. What we all thought, what economists thought, was that Trump was shot himself in the foot, that Trump would just come into office, take credit for the amazing economy and its future growth that was projected, and just ride off what Biden had done and say, look what I did. No, he did the opposite. He crashed the economy. None of that has to do with Joe Biden. Trump didn't have to do this to any of us. He literally crashed the economy because he felt like it, and to clamp down on control of corporations, of businesses, and to create an authoritarian society. I mean, that's the reality. It's a control move.
Yeah, and Jerome Powell can so there's
effectively was speaking to that at a conference. He was just saying Trump did this.
I've got the sound right here, so let's just listen to this.
Level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up significantly, with survey participants pointing to tariffs. Survey measures of longer-term inflation expectations, for the most part, appear to remain well anchored as well. Market-based break-evens continue to run close to 2%. So, as we gain a better understanding of the policy changes, we'll have a better sense of the implications for the economy and hence for monetary policy. Surveys of households and businesses report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. Outside forecasts for the full year are coming down, and for the most part point to continued slowing but still positive growth. We are closely tracking incoming data as households and businesses continue to digest these developments.
So, and then as just to remind people,
Trump is running the economy into the ground. That's what he just said.
Correct. So I'll read this again.
I don't know what any of those words mean, so I was just helping them. He said, Trump's not doing a great job, and now there's going to probably be a recession. We are monitoring things. That's why Trump lashed out at Jerome Powell for being honest.
Yeah, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair that Trump appointed, by the way, who now he thinks he can fire, which he can't. So who knows what's going to happen there. But when Jerome Powell comes out and says, this is what the data tells us, this is what the data tells us about the impact. And then Trump's reaction again was this. Preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many, by nobody. With energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down, there is virtually no inflation. With these cuts trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can be almost no inflation. But there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period, when he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala get elected. How did that work out? Think about what he said there. And then he just recently gives J.D. Vance the tariff czar title. It's because he is not going to take any responsibility for the economy crashing around him. Instead, he's sitting there lying to his voters like he always does 35,000 times in 4 years. And the lie has continued. The tariffs are inflationary. He does not know what a tariff is. He is convinced 77 million people, we'll say 45 million that are hardcore MAGA, no matter what he does or says, they'll believe that this is because of Jerome Powell now. The reason that we are in this position now is because of Jerome Powell. I appointed him, but he's changed. He's been influenced by the deep state, which I have in my government. But yeah, what about Biden? This is the world we're living in now.
He did say before he's changed, he said, I hate him, but I did have the best economic administration in my first administration, which is a complete lie. Trump ran the economy into the ground and spent, which I have graphs to prove that, right? But he has to slip in a lie right, while he's talking about Jerome Powell and then saying, but now Jerome Powell is an a-hole because he won't lower interest rates. I just want to help you. If we lower interest rates now, it will hasten the rise of inflation and send our economy into a recession. Jerome Powell is the only thing standing in between us and a recession. And he's done. His term is up soon, isn't it? I think it's in the end of May or something.
Yeah, I think, is it next year or is it this year?
I don't know. It's like they have long terms. Just like Jerome Powell said at that conference. He's like, seemingly forever.
Can't hire me. I'm not going to. Yeah, it is.
I don't know when it's.
I thought so.
Is it 2027?
I thought it was 2026. Yeah.
Yeah, 2026. Yeah, midterm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think obviously, and so this is Jerome Powell saying, "Listen, dude, you created this mess. You put me in charge of this. You created this shit. This is what the data tells you." But so we'll be keeping an eye on this little battle back and forth between the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing convicted felon fraudster. By the way, the market is down 834 points since opening. Not only is it below 39,000, but it's soon to be below 38,000, which is a drop of 8,000 points since Inauguration Day.
Now, what happened to 90 deals in 90 days? Not one tariff deal has been announced with one country. And I just want to tell you, I was reading Japanese news that was translated into English. I was using my VPN in Australia, and they are saying that they have been trying to negotiate with people in the Trump administration, and the Trump administration cannot explain to Japan why Trump is doing what he's doing. They have no justification for the math. They don't understand why this is happening or if it will change shortly. So Japan's like, we cannot negotiate with idiocy, basically.
I want to play some sound from some elected officials. It's not necessarily related to our topic here. I'm going to play sound from your bestie, Felice, because I shared that with you yesterday. That's pretty disturbing. But let's start with Bobo first. So Bober seems to think that the District of Columbia is named after the country of Colombia. I shit you not. Just listen.
I would caution my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to refrain from making fun of the Gulf of America, because next up, may end up be the District of America that we're working on. So just, keep the jokes at bay, and, maybe we'll just stick with the Gulf of America for now.
What is she saying? I mean, Trump does want to change the District of Columbia to the District of America. Trump is the one that
I understand that, but she believes that the District of Columbia is not the origin of the District of Columbia. She's alluding to the fact if it's the Gulf of Mexico, we'll change it to the Gulf of America. The District of Columbia, we'll change that to the District of America. Well, because she's a bigoted racist. Maybe I'm the only one that interpreted that way. But that's what I heard. So, but let's get back to our other bestie, Nancy Mace.
I get it.
So Nancy Mace, as we know, is a vile human being, was out recently, and she recorded this and then posted this on her socials. And then you can just listen to what she has to say and willingly post it on her socials. This is so embarrassing for anybody in her district.
I do them every year. Every year. You want to keep going? Do you want to keep going and keep harassing?
So one of her voters just asked her if she's going to be doing any more town halls.
You could have gone to a dozen town halls last year.
I asked if you're doing any more this year. It was one simple question.
Yeah.
Are you doing a town hall?
I've already done one. I'll do plenty more.
Any more this year? It was a simple question.
You're always invited.
Okay. Wait, well,
and by the way, I voted for gay marriage twice.
What does that have to do with me?
So I'm just saying, it has everything to do with you.
You think everything about me has to do with gay marriage?
I do.
That's
absolutely.
your first stance when you speak with me?
Wow. Absolutely. If you want to get in my face about town halls, you should have shown up to one last year.
There's no other thing you can talk about me just saying, oh, I support gay marriage.
Yeah.
That's
because you're getting in my face about a town hall. You could have gone last year.
Would you like me? If you have any plans to have more town halls this year?
I have town halls every year. I have over a dozen every year.
Great. That was my entire question. You didn't have to go into the spiel about
You could have come to any of them last year.
Okay. And
I had over a dozen.
2024.
Where were you the year before that? Or the year before that?
It was a simple question.
Oh, because you know what? Because you people on the left are crazy. You're absolutely fucking crazy.
I'm absolutely fucking crazy.
You are. And get out of my face. Goodbye.
You're insane.
Fuck you.
You're gonna fuck me, and you're gonna be voted out so fast this year.
I'm not. I won by so much.
You're a disgrace to this state. That's what you are. You're a disgrace. I asked you a simple question, and you just go on this tirade and tell me fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
Disgusting.
Get out of my face.
Fuck you.
Get out of my
United
face.
States
Try it again.
Congressperson.
What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Don't shake her hand.
Absolutely. Get the fuck out of my face. Now. Fuck you. You couldn't take me on, baby. Stay the fuck away from me.
No, that's Nancy Mace.
That is, I'm serious right now. Like Keith Olbermann wrote underneath that, self-institutionalized. Wait, I want to just read to you what she posted the clip saying. This is her own words. She posted this clip of her swearing at and dehumanizing her own constituent who just asked, are you going to do any more town halls? She said, some unhinged lunatic. Yeah, that's you. This is projection. Notice how people project that you're talking about yourself. And it's some unhinged lunatic, a man wearing Daisy Dukes at a makeup store. By the way, she's in a Mac store. I don't know, just as someone who knows what not Mac, sorry. Sephora. She's in a Sephora, just to be clear. Sure. At a makeup store, got in my face today. Dems are nuts. Again, he never identified his politics. All he said is, I'm your constituent. Are you doing another town hall? So I went off. And I won't be backing down. I hold the line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Yeah, the line of sanity, which you are on the wrong side of. So, but it's time not for 50-51 protests. It's time for the old 51-50.
Yeah, it's actually on. And so again, if you're in South Carolina, I don't know what district she represents. We should find that out. But if you,
I think it's the first. She represents Charleston, like Charleston. I think it.
Yep. So that's who represents you in Congress. So, politics aside, that's the person who represents you in Congress. That's the person who wanted to throw down with Jasmine Crockett until Jasmine and also.
That's right.
AOC
it is the first. How do I know? Yep. I know all the crazies congressional district.
Yeah. But, again, this is here's the problem. She probably is in a district that is heavily red, so she feels confident.
Charleston is not that red, and it's fast turning purple. Like she was originally elected her first term because she was screaming at that man, I voted for gay marriage. She ran on a platform of being a moderate Republican, a rhino, as they now call them, who would defend AB rights for women who had been raped. So she understood that women needed access to AB healthcare, that she was a staunch supporter of LGBTQT as well, rights. Correct. She was she was floated, she was on a float in the Pride Parade. And then when Trump started not liking her, she did a complete 180 to remain in power in Congress. She used to be a whole different person. Nancy Mace is in a swing. Nancy Mace she's not going to stay there. She's not in some gerrymandered district.
No, and she's also the person who was gone after Sarah McBride, the first trans person in Congress.
Who said that she had a vigorous handshaking motion was an assault. That the charges were recently dropped. She was at a foster care event where a man came up and shook her hand. And I'm saying I have the police report and have read other witnesses' accounts who said the man shook her hand and said, hey, a huge percentage of foster care is LGBTQIA youth. They need your support too, and walked away. She had the man arrested and spent the night in the Capitol Police Station for assault, which under the Trump administration, those charges were recently dropped.
Yeah. Shocker. She's also the person who echoed the T slur in the halls of Congress. This is, again, to Felice's point, this is a woman who ran for her seat on progressive rights and support of marginalized communities, in particular, the LGBTQ plus community. And this is how far she's fallen when you are sniffing power. And yes, there is reporting of her potentially running for the governorship of South Carolina. So then she and Sarah Huckabee Sanders then can compete for the most bigoted governor in the South. And it's really unfortunate because I'm an advocate for women's rights, and I'm an advocate for women's roles in our society. And then you've got two women who've ascended to power, and they could use their power and status for good. Instead, this is who they've become. And
Nancy Mace is not an advocate for women. So she is not an advocate for women in any way. In what way is Nancy Mace advocating for women? All she does is vote for legislation that limits women's rights. No, I know what you're saying. Like, I want to support women, but Nancy Mace doesn't support women.
That's a good point. She's actually an enemy to the cause, right? So here you are, especially women within the Republican Party, with an opportunity to kind of reset the narrative, to change the party politics. And you've got someone like Nancy Mace, she's not dumb by any means. She's just got a lot of hate in her heart. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is dumb, in my opinion, but it's a different conversation. But Nancy Mace just has a lot of hate in her heart, and this is what's happened. Now you get a constituent out there, and by the way, you can see the video. Guy's not wearing Daisy Dukes, just wearing shorts, and why would that?
Those are actually
anyway?
quite stylish shorts. Like men are showing thigh now, and have been across the world for a long time. Just Americans and our backwards values like go against actual fashion. But yeah, those are just quite fashionable shorts. Nancy Mace is implying that there's something like homosexual about them, but that's just a misconception in the South and a misunderstanding of fashion.
Agreed. Tia, how are you today? Tia, are you there? Tia going once. Tia going twice. Okay. All right. There's more reporting on the situation with Harvard. For those of you who don't recall, and again, what we're seeing now is a lot of people on the right really trying to fight hard, going back to Project 2025, attempting to twist the narratives of Project 2025, saying that these things are not related to Project 2025. You guys are wrong. Well, we know that one of the foundational and fundamental tenets of Project 2025 was to go after institutions, right? The indoctrination factories, as they call it, liberal universities. Meanwhile, most of the people who are saying these things publicly all attended these, indoctrination factories, these liberal universities, Yale Law School, Harvard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Harvard now is in the fight because Trump has said unless they change their policies around DEI and, in their words, propaganda, indoctrination policies, they're going to lose federal funding. Well, Harvard Harvard's in the fight. They're going to be like, we're going to respond along with other colleges and universities, which I'm glad. By the way, Harvard's sitting on like a $60 billion endowment, so it's not like they can't afford it, but it's a different conversation. Hold on, let me let my dog.
Harvard is their endowment's $53 billion. There's legal maneuvers they have to use to access it to supplement them while they deny, fight Trump. But yeah, that is what their endowment is essentially for. They also hold patents, trademarks of all types because of the medical research that comes out, and so it's not like their endowment feeds itself.
Correct. It is also that's part of this conversation I want to have, because a lot of the brain drain, you're already seeing universities in Europe offering scientific asylum to high school graduates and people who want to pursue their education abroad. Right. I got a text message from my daughter who's in Paris, by the way, as we speak, about so she walked by a university. She's like, Dad, I want to go to school here. I'm like, okay. I kind of figured that was going to happen. Anyway, the research grants that fund these publicly funded and privately funded universities, that is so critical to healthcare, to innovation, to progress. Think about the tech innovation that comes out of Silicon Valley and universities like Stanford. That's all important, and these same universities are going to be under threat. So not only are we going to lose the brain drain, but we're going to get more and more students. They're going to leave our country and go abroad. Why wouldn't they? So Harvard
Greg
received
sent me an email about France. Like France is specifically now recruiting intellectuals and people seeking PhDs to come to universities in France. So, and I've talked about this and I've shown the statistics on it, but just know, like, Trump's a liar who also can't do math. So let me just tell you the real statistics. For every dollar we spend, our tax dollars that are spent on medical research, we fuel our economy with $2.56. So understand that without medical research, and there are studies you can look up that are already being done on this, our economy will contract, meaning it will drive us into a recession. Same with a study just came out similarly on tourism. Trump is terrifying people into contracting our economy. We're losing we're going to lose $100 billion in tourism. Our economy contracts, drives us into a recession. You can't retire.
By the way, friends, I just got a harassment warning. So if you guys wouldn't mind really doubling up on the tapping, I'd really appreciate that tapping and gifting. And please keep the live active. F1, gift like crazy for the next 5 minutes, tap like crazy for the next 5 minutes, so we can push back against that harassment warning, whatever that might have been. I must have harassed Felice. She must have reported me.
We love TikTok
Harvard
Shop.
Totally love it. Harvard recently received a letter from the Trump administration that included a series of demands about hiring, admissions, and curriculum so onerous, the school officials decided they had no choice but to take on the White House. The university announced its intention on Monday, setting off a tectonic battle between one of the country's most prestigious universities and the U.S. president. Then, almost immediately, came a frantic call from a Trump official. The April 11th letter from the White House Task Force on Anti-Semitism, this official told Harvard, should not have been sent and was unauthorized, two people within the matter said. The letter was sent by Acting General Counsel of the Department of Health and Human Services, Sean Kaveny, according to three other people who were briefed on the matter. Mr. Kaveny is a member of the Anti-Semitism Task Force. It is unclear what prompted the letter to be sent. Its content was authentic, the three people said, but there were differing accounts inside the administration of how it had been mishandled. Some people at the White House believed it had been sent prematurely, according to three people who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about internal discussions. Others in the administration thought it had been meant to be circulated among the task force members rather than being sent to Harvard. So either way, it's completely incompetent. So one group of people were saying, well, yeah, we didn't mean to send the letter. The other one said, yeah, we did, but we didn't want to send it to Harvard. We only wanted to send it to the people who are talking about how we can go after Harvard. Make that make sense, Felice.
I'll say what I think, because I've read like 4 or 5 different articles on this and I'm obsessed with it. I mean, that article was drawn up. It cites 3 different agencies, right? And has the letterhead, like it was an email, but it cites 3 different agencies that they had been negotiating with. So I don't think it was a mistake. I think it went out on purpose, right? And let's say they had folded and just agreed to those demands. Then Trump had won. But what happened was a huge backlash when people read what was in that letter, right? And Harvard's like, no, we're not doing this. Then someone mentioned this in the comments and I was talking about it on Friday. Now the Big 10 or Big 12, whatever they are, however many schools is there now since the recent changes? They're all banding together. They're all banding together and agreeing an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, right? I keep saying this. Trump keeps overplaying his hand. Trump is the best player on our team, right? Trump gets angry or needs a big distraction from some other BS that's going on. He does something and overplays his hand. And this is another example of it. Harvard was in negotiations with actual lawyers, general counsel that work for different federal government departments. Those people are sane people, right? Whoever sent out this letter, less so sane, right? It's shots fired. And then the lawyers go back and they're like, we didn't send this. We didn't approve this. We have no idea why this is happening. This is crazy. We were having productive talks. But it's like, no, but you're not in control of the crazy man who's having people do this stuff. And what happened when that letter went out? Did Trump say, I didn't send it? No, he froze billions in funding and started making more threats and more threats. So very clearly,
and bragged about it.
Some people knew that letter was going out. Some people were ready to fight. It's just the sane ones, the actual lawyers who thought they were negotiating with Harvard were not looped in.
That's exactly right. So what Greg just prepared for us, what you see behind me is these are non-US travelers coming to the US. Change in non-US passengers processed by CBP at JFK, LAX, Atlanta, and other large airports over the 30 days relative to the 30 days a year prior. So this is what you see.
That's our economy crashing.
And you see this massive drop off. So in a state like mine, who literally depends on tourism, tourism is without question 4 seasons, 5 seasons if you include mud. If you don't have people traveling to your state, we always joke about this. Welcome to Vermont. Now go home. Kidding, but we depend on it. And our country is a service. We are a service society, right? That's what we do here. So you are seeing not only the impact of people, the impact you're going to see from students not wanting to come abroad from Europe and other places around the world to study here because of this bullshit. Now people are like, I'm not even going to bother. Maine, for example, Maine, there was a story from a local Maine affiliate up there just a few weeks back about how reservations are being canceled because people are afraid to travel and are saying, why would I bother? These are the things that don't get talked about enough, but this is a massive drain, billions of dollars annually that would come into our country from tourism. And now, again, what's ballistic podiatry? Is that what you call it?
Shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah, that's what we're doing. And our economy is contracting. And one of the biggest stories, I'm obsessed with immigration law because the courts are the last place and the truth matters. And just know this is another example. And this is why there will be no tourism. And you see this graph very clearly depicting that. I think it was people who spent a lot of money to go on a vacation in Hawaii. They did not. And the majority of Americans never leave the U.S. and don't have a passport, so they don't understand how other people around the world travel. When I say I disappeared into South America, I don't mean I had a hotel booked. I mean I had a one-way ticket, and then you just show up around the rest of the world and you book hostels that are like $5, $10 a night. You don't make plans. This is how Europeans and people in the rest of the world travel. Right? So these people booked these tickets to Hawaii, landed because they didn't have a hotel. Yeah, 2 German women didn't have a hotel pre-booked. They assumed they were illegals trying to sneak into the country and held them like without food in horrible conditions for days and days and days. These are and if you think that's an isolated incident, it's not. It's people who are trying to give money to the U.S. economy and visit who are being terrorized by immigration. And why would you ever spend money thinking you're going on a vacation to Hawaii and then you're terrorized for days, not given proper food and clothes, and then deported?
Just because you didn't have a hotel on your travel itinerary by design. People do that. People travel without a plan. They just get on a plane.
People travel in the rest of the world.
Exactly. If you've never done it, it's great. I've done that many, many times. Have no idea where we're going to end up. Just go, and then you figure it out when you get there, right? By the way, there is reporting that just came down that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's bag, including $3,000 in cash, was stolen from a D.C. restaurant. DHS and Secretary and puppy lover Kristi Noem fell victim to a thief while eating dinner at a downtown D.C. restaurant Sunday night. 2 sources familiar with the incident, including a law enforcement official, told CNN. Secret Service, which provides security for Noem, reviewed security camera footage at the restaurant and saw an unknown white male wearing a medical mask steal her bag and leave the restaurant. The thief got away with Noem's driver's license, medication, apartment keys, passport, DHS access badge, makeup bag, blank checks, okay, sure, and about $3,000 in cash. The law enforcement source said the Secret Service has launched an investigation to trace any use of Noem's financial instruments, the person said. Interesting. What do you know? What do you know? I wonder what's
waste government resources on that. That's cool. Let's spend all of our
how do you have that much money on it? How do you have that much money on a government salary, Felice? Yeah, seriously. Devo, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind today?
I was just, I requested to come up when you were talking about the tourism piece. So, I live, Western New York State, about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls, one of the international, attractions of the world. Sure. And, and we, as you were saying, where you live, we in New York State rely a lot on the Canadian tourism coming over. Yeah. We factor that into our budget every year. And, and I have a lot of friends up in Canada, and they refuse to come here. They won't come here. They don't want a vacation here. They will go, even if coming to the Buffalo area is more convenient for them for whatever type of travel they want to do. They go out of their way to go to somewhere that's not, that is not in the U.S. We actually have good family friends of ours that are from Canada. They've been here for 30 years. They're U.S. citizens. They're moving back to Canada because they don't want to be in the U.S. anymore. And I think something that the MAGA and the conservatives, they're so focused on bring back manufacturing that they don't talk about the tourism that we're not getting here. And I'll land my plane, but I'm a big fan of the band Mumford and Sons, and they just released a tour, and I have a lot of friends in Canada. And there's concerts in cities like Buffalo, Detroit, Cleveland, where there's like probably 30-40% of the tickets still have not been sold. And all my friends that are in Canada, they are like, yep, it's easier for me to go to Buffalo for a concert, but I'm going to drive to Quebec because I don't want to go to the States. I'm going to add an extra 8 hours onto my trip because I don't want to come there. So I'll land my plane there. But just like you, being so close to a tourist area where we depend on them, and we're already starting to see the effects of it. It's absolutely terrifying, and it's not talked about enough. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So that was really all that I had, and it needs to be talked about more.
I appreciate you for being here. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that insight.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. It's true, right? I mean, there are so many. Without tourism, Vermont does not exist. There's a population of 620,000 people here. Who, by the way, like 2,500 folks showed up over the weekend for the various rallies. It was amazing. It was 45 degrees, pouring rain. It was raw, and folks are out there doing our thing. But without tourism, without international tourism, and even tourism from state to state, we would not have an economy. It's very volatile, and there's other parts of our country that depend on it as well. Every area has tourist attractions, but our economy is based on tourism. So when we have a lot of visitors from Canada, so does the state of Maine, so does New Hampshire, which we really don't care about. Sorry, not sorry. But there's so many places around our country that rely on it. And here we are, right? When we see those massive decreases in, foreign travel, and we're going to start to see the brain drain because we're going to see citizens and high school age graduates in Europe and other places around the world are not going to come back because their visas are going to be revoked or whatever else. How can you function? How can we function?
Well, and more importantly, like MAGA, if you're focused on manufacturing coming back, manufacturing is not coming back. I just need to be very clear. And I said this when I was debating last week, and it was blowing people's minds. So I cited like 5 sources. Hey, even when we were just doing protectionist tariffs on certain things, it caused us a net loss in manufacturing jobs and a net loss in jobs, period. Trump's first term tariffs did not yield us. In fact, it lost manufacturing jobs. The only outcome of targeted tariffs and protectionism, that's the name for targeted tariffs, is votes in swing states. That's why they do it. That's why they focus on steel in Pennsylvania and auto in Michigan. It's to save a few people's jobs and get some votes. That's the only thing it yields. It yielded a net loss in manufacturing jobs. So anyways, and then now we're talking about tariffs double what Smoot and Hawley did that drove us into the Great Depression. The worst mistake we've ever made in life. Trump's like, let's double that mistake. Manufacturing will never come back to the United States. If you don't understand that is a fact, that means you don't have an understanding of economics and the world economy and what it costs to produce things and labor laws in the United States.
And even if it does, it will be automated.
But that would be in 10 years if it ever happened. It will never happen. It's not going to happen.
Totally agree. Iowa, how are you? It's been a minute.
It has been. How are you doing today?
Doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
A couple quick points.
Sure.
With one, obviously, gas prices have not come down. In fact, they actually went up last week. And you guys already covered that topic beautifully, by the way. And also, by the way, good morning, Felice.
Morning.
A couple things I wanted to touch base on that I didn't quite hear, and I apologize. Mondays are my admin days at work, so I've been kind of in and out on your live here. So,
thank you, though.
With the Tariff Act that he's doing, a couple things real quick. Have you guys covered the bond market impact because of that?
I mean, I've covered it on my show. I mean, they think the bond yield's rising. MAGA thinks that's a good thing. Yeah, MAGA has an exact opposite understanding of what's going on in the bond market. Countries like Japan, the largest holder of U.S. bonds, started dumping bonds. I mean, that's probably why Trump reversed the tariffs. Our bond market. Usually people flee to U.S. bonds when the economy is crashing because it's a safe place. The exact opposite is happening. People are dumping them. And there's no safe haven. Our economy is crashing even in the safest places. And that's why Trump was scared.
Yep. Not only Japan, but China also started dumping bonds too. And what they don't understand is when those yields go up, the cost of excuse me.
That's what I'm saying. MAGA, if you don't know this, because I hang out on X, MAGA was posting the graph of the 10-year yield going up, saying, look what Trump's doing. It's working. And then people had to be like, yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, what it really translates, to keep it simple for them, is that when those rates go up, it's going to cost us, the USA, more money to, our interest rates on borrowing money go up.
Correct.
And of course,
it's more expensive to borrow money.
Exactly. Yes. It destabilized the dollar. And, we are at risk of losing the world currency. And it's because of his shenanigans. The
dollar has lost about 10% of its value since Trump has been in office.
Yeah,
correct.
It's ridiculous. The other point I wanted to make real quick with this whole District of America BS, either one of you happen to know the name of the statue that sits on top of the Capitol?
Columbia.
Correct. A fictional goddess. So, again, another, sling you can put in your or arrow you can put in your quiver, whatever you want to use it. But yeah, we were never a Christian nation. We were not founded on that. So again, if we were, why would we not have a cross sitting on top of our Capitol building? So it was just, just pointing out some facts. Anyway, I got to get going. I have a conference call at 10:30, so I'm going to bounce.
Thanks, Iowa. Appreciate you as always.
Post zombie day.
Nice to meet you, or nice to talk to you again.
See you later. By the way, so this is another post from True Social. I had this one keyed up. This is in all caps. So when the toddler writes in all caps, he really wants you to pay attention to what he's saying. So this entire thing is in all caps. The businessmen who criticize tariffs are bad at business, but really bad at politics. They don't understand or realize that I am the greatest friend that American capitalism has ever had. Well, let's unpack that a bit, shall we? The businessmen who criticize tariffs are bad at business, but really bad at politics. And then he claims to be the greatest friend that capitalism has ever had. Well, he's partly right about that, because the massive wealth transfer last week and more of what we're witnessing last week, we're going to witness today and this week, he's right. His billionaire donors and his millionaire cronies and his corporate donors have been enriching themselves over and over and over and over again. It's right, Melly. Nuh-uh. Hold on, I got sound for you. I found this. Hold on. Nuh-uh. So that's the twice impeached, 4-time indicted sexual abusing fraudster convicted felon coming out and telling everybody what we already know. I'm not in it for you, Mr. and Mrs. Small Town Rural Farmer. I'm in it for my rich donors and the people that stood behind me at Inauguration Day. Can you imagine going on your True Social platform and saying that I am the greatest friend that American capitalism has ever had? And we're like, yeah, no fucking shit, dude. Everybody else is getting enriched except the people who are suffering the most are the ones that are going to continue to suffer. And by the way,
I know words. I have the best words, but there's no better word than stupid.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't even know what to say anymore.
Oh yeah, I found this Goldman Sachs outlook I was looking for. Yeah, a jaw-dropping new analysis from Goldman Sachs reveals that Donald Trump's disastrous policies could cost the United States a staggering $90 billion in lost tourism and export revenue. Yeah, it goes on and on, because I mean these are the people that predict the future of the markets, and all they predict is the United States losing.
That's exactly right. So we have Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, appointed by Trump, has gone out publicly just last week and said, listen, this is going to get a lot worse than our initial projections. And because he criticized Trump, and the entire thing is, ballistic podiatry, self-inflicted firearm wound to the foot, right? His response is the people who claim to know about, the business people who claim to know about tariffs are all wrong. I'm right. Well, you don't even know what a fucking tariff is, my guy. But he's right. So I think I have somebody else in the box who might have requested. Yep, Deed's here. And then I have to wrap. I've got a little capitalism I got to deal with in just a few minutes, but that's fine. We got some time here. Hi, Deed. How are you? Deed? Loaded. Okay. All right. Well, in summary today, actually, there's another request. Dak is requested. We'll bring up Dak. And then we'll wrap. Hi, Dak. How are you today?
What?
Hi there.
Shoot.
Did not want to request? It's okay. I get it. I understand. It's no problem. Everybody's been so aggressive helping us get to 500,000 likes today. We appreciate you guys very, very much.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much.
So where this whole thing started today, and I think it's really, really important that we all pay attention, is that taking out the trash under the cover of darkness. There's a tactic that government agencies and people who don't want to have the news public but know that they have to make it public, they'll do it in the dark of night. They'll do it at Friday nights because there's not as many people watching. People are not looking at the newspaper or news in general. You're hopefully taking a little bit of a break. So what we see continually from the Trump administration is that when they're doing these kinds of things that are very, very dangerous. So we hope that you guys have all learned something about how to pay attention to certain things. The timing is really, really important. Just a quick check of the Dow. The Dow is the market is still down. Where is it? 800 points, 945 points currently, heading down under 38,000 for the first time in a very, very long time. Felice, final thoughts today before we wrap? Anything that you'd like to promote? Anything that's on your mind? Let me, as we're talking about that, let me just bring this up again. Because
just going to do it again. Yeah, Wednesday, we are having a night live, Matt, Fax, and I at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Please join us. We'll be discussing the erosion of democracy and things on our minds and our plans leading up to the midterms to combat the misinformation, disinformation, and how we can all get involved in hopefully a virtual town hall series.
I just want to point out how great Felice looks. And then there's Matt and I. In our little group chat that we have, it's 2 Santas and a lady. So she's exactly right. I love it though. Two pinkies in the brain. Even better. I like that. I like that even better.
That's perfect. I'm changing
that is much better. I love that.
So in the brain.
So that's on Wednesday night at again 4 Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. This has been great today. Anything you'd like to wrap up in regards to this conversation or just anything else future? I'm sure you have a show today that you're going to want to promote.
No, well, yeah, the People's Receipts later today, 11:30 Pacific time, 2:30 Eastern. And then I just wanted to say, like, focus on, don't listen in real time. And I always say this, like, that's why my show is a lot based on, hey, like after a day, a 24-hour news cycle happens, I like to go through and like tell the story of it in as calm a way as possible, because don't live minute by minute, hour by hour, feeding off of the Trump reality show. That's what he wants. He wants you to have an endless amount of flight or fight responses throughout the day as he lies through his teeth, right? That's why I try to just say, hey, like, don't tell me what's going on right now. Like, I'll know, and then I'll report on it later. Like, try not to fall victim to the to the Trump reality show that is going on. I think that's the best advice I heard last week, is just Trump is doing what he does best, producing a reality show, his version of reality every single day that's full of lies, misinformation, and he's trying to make people feel hopeless and helpless. Like, don't live minute to minute by what Trump is up to. It will drive you, it will hurt your mental health.
That is really, really good advice. You know, people ask us, how do we do this every day? It's important to Felice and I that we talk about these kinds of things. It doesn't mean it doesn't take its toll on us, because it does, but it's necessary. You know, we feel like we've got a lot of things to accomplish, which is why I think really looking forward to Wednesday night and our first sort of virtual town hall that is going to turn into something a lot bigger, because there's so many things that we can discuss. And I think the three of us look at things very, very similar, but yet have different focuses. And I think this is going to be really, really great. And I want to thank my friend Felice for really making this happen. We've been talking about this for a long time, and we're finally here. So thank you, my friend, for joining us today. And what time do you go live with People's Receipts?
11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern. I shall see you all later. Have a great day. Thank you for having me in your wonderful community.
Thank you, Felice. We love you. Talk to you later. Okay, friends. So again,